Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Camp Hustle One here, back with another live stream. How you guys doing, man? Let's see, who do we got here today? Eris Playworld, welcome to the stream. How you doing? Hello. Coke Benny, sup, Camp? Good to see you, man. How you doing? Tito's a Ghost, welcome to the stream. Hey, Camp, get the fire roaring. Who are we roasting? Are we roasting somebody tonight? Uh-oh. You know, it's always unexpected. I never know how the stream is going to end. I can always tell you how it's going to begin, though. We're always going to start with a little bit of structure, and then we're going to eventually go off the rails, and that's where the fun begins. So let's go ahead and not waste any time. This is going to be actually clickbaited you guys last live stream. I'm really sorry. We talked for about 6 hours, and we never covered the topic that I was meant to cover. We ended up kind of veering off and having a 4-hour debate, and you got a lot of good clips out of it. I mean, for those of you that didn't see it, but yeah, I mean, it was. I had a lot of fun, but you know, sometimes we got to kind of reel it back in and get back on topic. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to get back on topic. And we're going to talk about what we would have talked about last week. So I have the video here. It's by Jack Neal. It's going to be another video that was suggested by Tosa Ghost. He sent this to me on the Discord. If you guys aren't part of my community, make sure you guys join the link. It's in the video description, and you guys can stay up to date with all the videos, all the live streams, and you guys can even submit videos for me to cover. And if it's worth covering, we will talk about it. So let's go ahead and join it. Let's get the party started. Air Spoiler World says, "What do you mean?" I think you're about to see what I mean. Just sit back and watch. So here we go. Let's go ahead and get to it. All right. So this video by Jack Neal is called "Feminism Did This." Rachel Wilson explains the paradox of female happiness. This is the title of last stream. It's going to be the title of this stream tonight, but for real this time. So I went ahead and opened up the Discord. If you guys would like to join in on this conversation, the alpha chat is open. I sent a few invites to some of you guys, and yeah, you guys are more than welcome to join, and we can have a little chat. So without further ado, let's jump into it.
Rachel, the average American woman is the most educated, most financially independent, and most free woman in human history. She's also the loneliest, most depressed, and least likely to have kids. Why do you think women are so unhappy in 2026?
That's the million-dollar question. There's actually been two large-scale studies done trying to answer that question. I think the first came out in 2009. It was called The Paradox of Declining Female Happiness. And in this study, the authors in their summary said that women have reported, this is based on women's surveys when you're asking women their opinion on how they are doing in life, how they feel about things. They're reporting higher levels of unhappiness, like you said, loneliness, depression, than ever before. So if we go back to the 70s, which is arguably kind of the tipping point where feminism became the dominant ethos. If you go back to the early 70s where they asked women these questions, they largely reported being pretty content. And now in the 2000s, we have 26% of all American women on at least one psychiatric drug. We have higher rates of fetal alcohol syndrome and alcoholism among women than we've ever recorded before. And women just overall reporting dissatisfaction, unhappiness, a feeling of being really torn, trying to have it all, trying to have a career and be a career woman and also have a family and do all of that. Women don't know what to do with relationships because on the one hand, they want men who make more than they do. They want men who are higher achieving than they are, yet this creates a paradox, whereas women have become the number one earners of college degrees. They have now got salaries that compete with men, and they've got more equality than ever before. They're finding that the men are not suitable to marry. They're finding that, they just can't find a guy who's on their level or higher, which is what they really want. So,
and this is what we talked about last week. I know we had a couple debaters last week. I know Sonic, one of the primary debaters, was telling me that there's going to be a shift happening where women aren't going to be looking at men for their financial standard. They're going to kind of maybe just because women are making more generally than men because they are the largest holders of college degrees, therefore holding higher positions in corporate, and basically they can't find men on their level, so women are going to just pick a guy that works at Starbucks, maybe a guy that's working on fries at McDonald's. And I completely disagreed. I said that no matter how high a woman goes up in her economic strata, she will always want to have a man that's doing better than her. That way she can look up to him. That way she can respect him. Otherwise, she is not going, it's not, the relationship is pretty much doomed, because a woman is not built to carry a man long term. Now, she can probably do it for a short time, but eventually this will devolve into a power struggle, and she is not going to respect the man because she's going to be the breadwinner. And women that are in the breadwinner positions tend to be a little fickle. You know, at the first sign of any bad sign in the relationship, it's almost like grounds to end it, because they can always do better. So everything that Rachel Wilson so far has said to set up this whole argument is pretty much I'm in line with, in terms of modern women being the most medicated, the most depressed, and the most unhappy, and the least fulfilled. And back then, you know, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, yeah, women were at home taking care of the family, taking care of the house. And, you know, their lives were simpler back then, sure, but they didn't have the drinking problems. They didn't have the depression. It was completely different. So with inflation and, you know, rising employment of men and women in the workplace, you're going to have women that are going to continue to climb the corporate ladder, but they're not going to compromise their standards. They're going to still want to find a man that they can look up to. And if they can't find that, then they're just going to hold out until they do.
We've created like a paradox where, by giving women everything that at least feminism told us they wanted, which was full equality, independence from men, so that we could choose a husband based on, you know, who we love and not who we need, that this would make women happier. And we're finding ourselves in a position where women are reporting the highest levels of unhappiness ever. They're actually even 3 times more likely than men now to have common mental health issues. Women have always been more prone to mental health issues than men since we started tracking that, but it's gone up. It's gotten worse. The disparity has grown. Women are finding themselves in a conundrum where they've got all the things that they were told would make them happy, and they're finding that they're more dissatisfied than ever. And what often happens, you'll see these viral clips on the internet of women in their 30s and 40s, you know, sitting alone in their car crying, saying, I did all the things I was supposed to do. I followed the prescription, and I'm unhappy. I'm stressed out. I'm alone. I can't find a husband. I won't have a family.
The clock is ticking. You know, a woman has only so many years to get her ducks in a row in terms of finding a man, settling down with him, having children at a healthy age, and, you know, to start her family. But a lot of women now are putting off the family and focusing on their career. And then they're realizing that by the time that they reach all of their goals and their financial status is, you know, completely comfortable, they have their house, they have their car, they have whatever they want, they realize that there are no men that want them now, because they've now aged out, and men are looking for less masculine women that are a little bit more softer and, you know, maybe don't have as much stress, because a female CEO definitely deals with a lot of stress, pretty much on par as any guy that's at that same position.
Am I going to die by myself? What did I do? I can't go back. So for me, it's a really tragic thing for women.
So you would boil it down to women are unhappy because they're lonely, because they're not getting married and they're not having kids.
I think that's a big part of it. And I think it's also, we put so much pressure and responsibility on women to do it all, be it all, and have it all. I really experienced a lot of that myself in my early 20s. So after I got through K through 12 high school, I was always a smart kid. I was always in like advanced classes preparing for college. I was given the message that you're definitely going to college. You've got to go. You're too smart. You can't waste your intellectual capacity by not going to school and having an important job. That's what you're going to do, like from kindergarten on. And by the time I got done with 12th grade, I thought, I think I just want to get married and have kids. Like, I really just want to marry my boyfriend, start a family, and be a mom. Like, that's what I want to do. And maybe someday if I want to have a career, I can do that later. People thought I was insane. Everybody around me, my parents, my friends, pretty much everyone around me just thought that was totally nuts.
Yeah, a whole generation was completely brainwashed by feminism that, you need to go out. You don't need a man. You need to go ahead and get your degree, get your financial security, and a family can wait, and then there are women that completely went the complete same way, even fuller route, and just completely swore off men completely because they didn't think that men were good enough.
Like, what? You're not going to go to college? You have a full ride scholarship and you're not going to take it? You're going to regret it. It's going to be terrible. Your life's going to be over. So it was like, what do I do here? Because what if I want to be a mom and have kids? Like, I want to raise them myself. How am I going to do that if I'm gone 40 to 50 hours a week? Especially if I get a career that's like very demanding. Like if I want to be a doctor or something, where does that leave room for raising my kids? I'm going to have to outsource that to someone else. And I didn't like that idea. And when I said I thought that was kind of silly and inefficient, I thought, isn't that silly? I'm having children and I'm going to pay some other stranger who isn't their mother, maybe $12 an hour or something, to spend all day with them. And I might get to see them for a couple hours at night and on the weekend. And that's it.
And meanwhile, they're not even with their kids.
Exactly. So I thought we're all just It's like we're playing musical chairs with the children. And it's like, well, you raise mine so that I can go to work. And then someone else will raise yours so that you can go to work watching my kids. And when I said, I think that seems silly. Who came up with this system? It sounds terrible to me. It was like I was challenging this deeply held dogma, this like preciously held dogma that like, well, you don't want to be enslaved, do you? And I was like, I don't know that going to work for a corporation and having to pay half of what I make to have someone else raise my kids, I don't know, that kind of sounds a little bit like slavery to me more than having a family. But there was just this.
Even worse, you got daycares that are like close to $500 to $1,000 every like couple weeks. And I mean, you're just breaking even at that point, which I'm very fortunate in, my marriage, my whole situation that, me and my wife, we work separate hours. So she works in the mornings and I work in the evenings. So we split our time with our kids and we don't have to worry about, trying to find a babysitter and stuff. And, we have 2 days off in the week that are synced up. And that's our family day. So, that's one thing I'm so grateful for my wife and just, this time that I have that I get to spend with my children. And I also get to, watch them grow up and, I don't have to be like at the job all the time. It works out very nice. So if you guys out there can find a woman that, is willing to get on your program, and then when you guys, eventually get married and have kids and stuff, try to see if you can work it out like that. So either you're working opposite hours, she's not working, too much, because again, my wife only works part-time. And I think that's kind of the perfect life balance for her. Whereas if she was working, like 60 hours, 80 hours a week or something, I think it would completely wear her out and she wouldn't have energy for anything. So yeah, definitely see if you can find somebody that can work with you.
This idea that if I didn't have my own money and my own career, the only guy who's going to be interested was someone who wanted to take advantage of me and hurt me and wanted me to be vulnerable and not able to escape.
You kind of gave the most important part of your backstory to understand why you view feminism the way you do. But I want to know about your parents and your childhood. Like, what's the most important part of your childhood that shaped maybe why you chose to write your book and some of your views today?
When I was 9 years old, my parents got divorced. And, my dad sat us down and explained that my mom had found somebody new. she was going to divorce him, and that he had to move out. And I remember asking him, wait, if mom got a boyfriend, you're not supposed to do that. That, that's against the rules. Why do you have to leave? That doesn't make sense. And my dad kind of got like tears in his eyes. And then I told him, I remember saying, I have a lump in my throat. It kind of hurts right here. And then he just kind of lost it. And, my mother really didn't want to explain. It was just like, Dad's got to go. And this other guy's going to move in. And that was kind of like the beginning of everything changing for me and my sister. And I remember thinking, and I had people like adults in my life when I would ask, one of my mom's friends was babysitting, and I was like, why? I know my mom wants a new boyfriend, but why does that mean that my dad has to move out? Now this guy's going to move in. Why can't me and my sister have our dad? And, I'm trying to figure this out as a 9-year-old. And the answer I kept getting was, well, your mom needs to be happy.
There it is. Women will choose happiness over their family. And I think for men, it's completely different. Men choose their family over their happiness. Men are willing to make the sacrifice, work the long hours, and do whatever they can to make sure that they keep a roof over their family's head and keep food on the table. But it seems like female happiness just seems to trump everything. And if a woman isn't happy, then yeah, she's going to try to find a way out of the marriage. So, and no fault divorce, unfortunately, is something that we have now. And yes, if a woman isn't happy, this option is open for her.
And I thought, well, yeah, I want my mom to be happy. Of course, I love my mom. But what about me being happy? And what about my dad being happy? And what about my sister being happy? So that was kind of like the first seeds of me wondering, why is she the only person that matters in this equation? Shouldn't we all matter? And nobody had a good answer. So as I got older, my mother had been kind of radicalized in college as a Marxist, and then started writing or reading Marxist literature, like The Mists of Avalon. It's like a feminist retelling of the Camelot legend. And it was from this very like Marxist feminist perspective. And she kind of adopted this view that like men are bad and evil, especially white men. The evil white men that have all the power are bad. The intersectional stuff, like the more oppressed you are, the more truth you have, and the more righteous you must be. And if you have money, or you own a business, or you're a white person, or you're a male, you must be bad. You must be oppressing someone to have those things. And that was kind of her worldview. So most of the week living with mom, that's the stuff I would kind of hear filtered through. It kind of trickles out as you're talking about things growing up. Then I go to my dad's, and he was a business owner. He was a Rush Limbaugh guy, in the car we'd be listening to Rush Limbaugh on the way to, my orthodontist appointments or something. So I grew up listening to him with dad, and my dad would explain things from a completely different worldview, like things are based on merit. It depends how hard you work for things, because a lot of people aren't willing to work hard, and those who are can potentially get ahead, even if they maybe started out behind. My dad would say, I didn't grow up with money, but I'm doing a lot better now than my dad was because I put in 14-hour days. I have better ideas than the other guys in the same industry I work in. So you earn your way in the world. Whereas my mom's view was completely different. It was everybody deserves, and you only don't have because someone else has. So these two completely opposite conflicting worldviews that you get as a kid, you kind of start having to learn to think things through and try to figure out, well, which one is correct? How do I know which one is correct? And how do I filter through these ideas to figure out which worldview is more accurate? What should I follow? Because I'm getting completely different directions from both parents.
I mean, rightfully so, when you think about it, because, women are going to have a lot more government aid that is aimed towards them, especially if they have children. And, the government's going to take care of them in terms of, food stamps and WIC and all that stuff. And then also if they were divorced, they can get alimony, they can get all types of support for the child and for them. And depending on how the court ruling was during the divorce, they could have had been granted the house, and the father of the children would probably have to move out, and he would get visitation, or the woman would be granted primary custody most of the time, and the man would have to get visitation. But he would have court ordered child support that he would have to make to the woman, and if she did not, if basically she didn't fulfill her end of the bargain, she could possibly get in trouble. But the man definitely had to fulfill his part of the bargain in terms of keeping up with child support payments. Because if he did not, then he'd be serving some type of jail time. So still, I think the system that we're in today is still kind of like that in terms of how when men and women separate when they have children. It's a very, very messy situation if there's no prenuptial involved. And it sucks because the kids lose out of the whole thing. The kids, most of the times, they just want to have a balance of both parents, but they're having to go with mom, even though mom probably doesn't have a job, or mom is not making as much as dad. And they don't really have a choice in the matter, unfortunately, until they reach age 15, because then kids can go wherever they want. But in terms of like the father's perspective of working hard and everything being merit-based, that's completely just the male standard, like we don't get handouts. We don't wait for handouts. And there are no government programs, like that are going to basically save us from ourselves if we hit rock bottom. There are homeless shelters for men, and there are homeless shelters for women and children that are exclusively for women and children. But when it comes to anything else, for men, it's like sink or swim. But if a woman is down and out, doesn't have any type of support, then the government can swoop in and take care of her. She can apply for welfare, she can apply for disability, and there's a lot of ways that she can get around it to where she doesn't have to worry about working.
I remember the best piece of advice my dad ever gave me, especially being a woman. He said, self-esteem is not based on external validation. You will never get a sense of self-esteem, a true sense of it, from people telling you you're pretty or telling you they like you or saying you did a good job. You get your real self-esteem from making good decisions and learning that you can trust yourself to do the right thing. And that was one of the first pieces that I felt really clicked for me. That, maybe dad's onto something. Maybe his worldview is more correct. And as I went through school and saw that, if we had a group project or something, oftentimes people would want to be on my team. Oh, I want to do the group project with Rachel because they know I care about it. I'm going to try hard and I want to get an A on the project. So they could sit back and kind of relax and kind of let me do all the work. And I thought, this must be that merit-based stuff dad's talking about, right? So just my experiences going through life, I felt like my dad's worldview was a lot more matched up with reality than my mother's idea that people just deserve. We're all just born deserving what we want, and someone needs to provide it. And if they don't, it's because of evil or oppression in the world.
You have a book, Occult Feminism. Do you think a big reason you decided to write this book was trying to maybe understand what could have led to the society that shaped her views?
Oh, definitely. And I wrote it with the idea in mind that I have 4 daughters, and I hope to have a lot of grandkids. If the Lord grants me that, I would be so happy. And I wanted to make sense of the world, like you said. What kind of society shapes a woman the way that it did my mother and so many other women like her? Like, if you look at the popular culture, you look at things like Sex and the City, you look at every pop star, like Sabrina Carpenter right now is making a multi-million-dollar a year industry off of cute little man-hating songs and things like this, And I was trying to make sense of how did we get here? Because my mom wasn't around a lot growing up because of all her issues. I would get sent to my grandparents' house all the time. And so I grew up mostly with my grandmas. And one of them just turned 100 on April 1st. And she was probably the most influential person on me. And again, got a totally different view of the world from her than I did from my mother. And she was much more traditional, and a very like practical, hardworking lady.
Oh, I mean, she came from a different time, a simpler time, and, definitely before first wave feminism, she was probably all about getting on a man's program and making sure that everything was hand washed and he had a home cooked meal, everything made from scratch. I mean, they don't make women like that anymore, unfortunately.
Not political at all. Grandma didn't care about politics. She wasn't talking about politics. She was worried about, getting the house cleaned, cooking dinner, taking care of the grandkids, those sort of things. And I feel like the world she grew up in was so different from the one that created my mother and from the one that shaped me. Almost everybody today kind of looks around and we all know that like something's off. Something's not working. Men and women are kind of pitted against each other and we have these dating apps and like nobody's happy and nobody's having kids and nobody knows what to do about it. And everybody knows that something is wrong or something is off, but nobody really knows what it is. And it's right in our face. But because we're swimming in feminist waters, just like a fish doesn't know it's swimming in water, we don't realize that that's what it is. And that's why I was like, I've really got to write a book because I feel like I could explain, now that I have done so much research and read so much history. I spent years reading early feminist writings, going back to Mary Wollstonecraft or even before, which is something nobody does unless you're going to college for gender studies. And then, of course, you're going to read it through the lens of feminism was wonderful and it's awesome and it's great. But me reading it through more of a skeptical lens of like, I just want to know what happened. I hadn't even decided that it was evil or satanic. I didn't know any of that. I was just like, I want to know what happened. I'm curious.
Not what she wrote, but who is this person that wrote this and why did they write it and who funded it and who made it popular?
Yeah. Why did somebody like Mary Wollstonecraft in the late 1700s at the height of the Revolutionary period, why did she write Vindication of the Rights of Woman, which is like the first big feminist publication? The kind of the thing that started it all. Why did she write that? Like, what was going on in her life? What was the society like around her? What things prompted her to want to write such a thing? How did people respond to it? So I spent years reading that stuff. And then once I felt like, okay, I've got like a really clear picture on what I think happened, I want to write a book. And I really thought it would be for my kids and for my grandkids. I never thought it would blow up and become like a bestseller. I just wanted to help them, like, as my daughters are growing up and they're deciding, do I want to start a family? Do I want to have a career? Like, which way do I want to go? I just wanted them to know the truth. This is my big thing with feminism is that if this is a movement for women, if it's for me, if it's for my daughters and it's for our benefit, we should know the truth about it. We should know the truth about how it came about, who pushed it to the forefront, who paid to push it to the forefront, why there needed to be a century and billions of dollars worth of propaganda, why the CIA had to get involved to create things like Ms. Magazine to push this stuff on the culture. Like, we should know that as women. If we are the benefactors of feminism, you could at least tell us the truth. I think it's very patronizing to say, don't look at that. Don't look at that. Just you don't want to be stuck in a bad marriage, do you? Don't you want your own money? So that's why I wrote the book, because I just feel like women deserve the truth about it.
Rachel, when most people think about how feminism actually started, they maybe think of early 1900s, women marching, figures like Susan B. Anthony, the suffragettes. But your book says feminism started thousands of years earlier.
Yeah.
So where does the real story of feminism actually start?
At the beginning of humanity. Of course, I'm a Christian, so I'm going to look at things through my Christian lens. But even if you're not, let's say you're a secularist, you don't care about the religious part. Clearly, nature has a hierarchy. Men are physically stronger, physically bigger than women are. And that's why through all of history, until technology made it possible to have feminism, like if you're wondering, why did we never have this feminism stuff? Why didn't it take over until the last 100, 150 years? It's because we needed an industrial revolution and then a technological revolution to create a world where women could be equal, meaning women can go out and earn a living just like a man. They can drive on roads that were built by men, in a car that was built by men and is maintained by men, to an office building that men built with an electrical power structure and telecommunications that are all built and maintained by men. And they can sit at a computer and have a job and say, I'm equal with men and I'm the same as men. 200-300 years ago, there was no such thing. If you were on a farmstead working alongside your husband, sure, you worked. You got up and you took care of the children, you milked the cows, you churned the butter, you did all of the, domestic agricultural stuff. But you knew that you couldn't, take giant steel beams and move them like your husband and his friends could. You knew that.
Yeah, the backbreaking labor was off limits, and now what you have available is the air conditioning desk jobs, that are going to give you plenty of lighting and plenty of seat cushion, and you'll have your little water, and you'll be fine. You can have a coffee, you can have a nice little 30-minute break and stuff, just scroll on your phone. And yeah, it's like you have all of these modern conveniences. You can Uber Eats food to your desk, so you don't have to worry about even getting up. You have all these modern conveniences, and still the hubris of a lot of these modern women thinking that they're equal to men have no idea that they couldn't even exist in this world if we hadn't set it up for them first.
The barn raising was done by the men because that stuff's heavy and you have to be big and strong in order to move, big, heavy things and do heavy, dangerous work. So there wasn't this idea that men and women are inherently equal. And when I say equal, I don't mean in value in the eyes of God or in value in the eyes of people even. It's more just that it's very clear that there's a biologically based difference between men and women, and each have their own responsibilities, their own burdens, their own roles to play, because we are not interchangeable widgets. Now that we have technology, everybody thinks we are. So I went back. I thought it was going to start around Mary Wollstonecraft, and then as I went further back, I realized there were women like Christine de Pizan, who was a writer for the French court in the 1500s. She was actually Italian, but became a prominent writer and worked for the French aristocracy and made her own money, became published. And she even wrote a lot about, why she thought we should push women to a higher station in society and things like that. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's a little earlier. And I kept kind of working my way back. And you realize that from the beginning of humanity, whether you think that's in the Garden of Eden or whether you think that's in ancient Mesopotamia, there's always been this hierarchical balance of men having a monopoly on physical force and women having a monopoly on reproduction and who gets to reproduce.
And that's literally what we were speaking about last stream, and how feminist ideals, anything that women will, fight for in terms of passing laws and legislation and stuff, they have to have men in support in order to get any type of movement off the ground. But, going back to, men being the kind of the enforcers of force, and then, women are basically the ones that get to carry on society. They're the ones that get to recreate more people and stuff. It's like we all have our own roles in the society, and, men basically built the system that, we are in, and how everything functions, and how we basically do the hard jobs to keep everything going. And we basically built the foundation and the structure, and women recreate the society. I mean, it's just like, it's as simple as that. But now in modern times, you have blurred lines where women want to be contributors just as much as men, and they have no interest in having children or even having a family. They just want to be recognized like the inventors and the people that laid the groundwork and stuff. They want to be a part of history as well.
What do I mean by that? If you look at genetic studies, each of us alive today has twice as many female ancestors as we have male ancestors. And the reason for that is because as a woman, all you need to do to, reproduce and make a genetic copy of yourself is be fertile. And some man is going to come along and he's going to fertilize you, right? That's really all you have to do. For men, it's never been like that. You've always had to either be able to, compete and dominate with other men by force or by having more resources or more wealth or status than them. You had to have, either had to take a war bride or get permission from a woman's father in ancient times in order to reproduce. And a lot of men died before they got the chance to do that, whether in war or by doing dangerous work, things like that. So there's always been this kind of hierarchy. And what feminism did was it said, we're going to try to equalize that. We're going to try to equalize the hierarchy. We're going to try to boost women up to where we think men are. But the problem there is that along with the power that men had came a lot of responsibility and difficult duties that women either don't want to fulfill or physically cannot fulfill.
Yes, the physical aspect, the long hours, the heavy lifting, the operating of machinery, the training that goes into this stuff. Women kind of avoid these jobs for basically jobs where they get to kind of sit down, they get to converse, and whether it's, speaking roles and types of jobs, rather than actually, or maybe even clerical work instead of actually doing any manual labor. Because, honestly, I would say that would probably be a woman's strength, being able to deal with people, whereas, men are more inclined to, take on jobs where they have to work with machinery and basically just things in general. And, I think that it's kind of where we got to play to our strengths.
Women have a duty that men cannot physically fulfill, which would be childbirth. So from my view, looking at history, there was a balance in place. And what feminism did was threw the balance off completely and shifted a whole bunch of power to women without the corresponding duties and responsibilities and accountability that would go with that. So if you look at ancient times, you had women's only agency was things like temple prostitution, being a priestess. We're talking about pagan times, like ancient pagan Rome maybe would be a good example of women can either marry into wealth, power, and status, they can be born into it, or they can do something like become a temple priestess or a temple prostitute or something like that. And that's, I guess, a form of like sexual liberation in ancient times. And when Christianity came along, it kind of did away with that and elevated women to more of holding them in a virtuous position. Not treating them as, sacrificial lambs. We're not, sacrificing virgins to angry gods or anything like that. We're saying, no, women should be protected and provided for. They should be venerated as mothers and good wives, and they should be chaste and pure to the extent that they can. And then men's job is to protect and provide. And it changed the social order of men and women from what the pagan order was, depending on where you were.
So the pagans, what were like some of the goddesses they were worshiping, and what were those societies that like were kind of pushing that feminist flip in gender dynamics?
Yeah. So my book opens going over some of this and how like a lot of the ancient goddesses were, they usually were goddesses of fertility, but they were also usually kind of vengeful and angry. A lot of them were, which is why they've become popular again in feminist circles, especially in the 1970s. There was a goddess worship revival. And that's kind of going on now. Like if you go on TikTok, there's plenty of girls talking about like Lilith or Inanna or some of these revitalized ancient goddesses that they worship, and whether they worship them truly in a spiritual sense or whether they're kind of worshiping them in like a not so much a literal sense, but just saying, I like this idea. This is like an avatar of the strong, independent woman who gets her revenge on men for trying to subjugate her. It depends, right?
It has a similar effect
yes,
at the end of the day.
Yes, at the end of the day, it's basically the same thing. Interestingly, a great example of this is the first cover of Ms. Magazine. Now, Ms. Magazine was the first feminist publication that was like really popular in America. There were feminist publications going back to the early 1800s, but this was like a mainstream magazine that was really pushed and became really popular in the 70s. It was founded by Gloria Steinem and Clay Felker of the CIA. So it had CIA funding and CIA backing, which is, people probably think that's super weird. Why would the CIA be interested in feminism? And it was part of a Cold War project called the Congress for Cultural Freedom. And this was an effort by the CIA to compare and contrast and distinguish us from Soviet Russia and say, we have this liberal freedom. They are, these old-timey oppressors, these communists. And it was kind of like an anti-communist propaganda to push the women's liberation thing. Like, hey, in the West, you can be free as a woman and you can't have that under the communists, which my second book is actually coming out later this year, is about that, about how actually the communists were the first ones to really push the feminism in government and make it legal under the Bolshevik regime. But that aside, the first copy of Ms. Magazine on the cover. Now, remember, you're trying to market this magazine to suburban housewives in America in 1973. And they picked the Hindu goddess Kali. And she is a blue-skinned, kind of terrifying-looking Hindu goddess who, now I'm not saying this from the Hindu perspective, because I'll get Hindus that get upset with me and they'll message me, you're wrong about, no, I'm saying the feminists, from the feminist perspective in the 70s, they saw her as a vengeful goddess who only accepts the sacrifice of men. She, eats the blood of men on the battlefield. She is the dark mother. And so there's this picture of her with 6 arms, and in her 6 arms, she's holding a baby and an iron and a frying pan. And there's even like a baby in her womb. And on the cover, it's, one of the issues, it's talking about abortion is one of the article topics. So there's like this baby in the womb and she's dressed in like an apron. And so very bizarre choice. But what they were trying to get across is like, we're at this tipping point where we're going to choose whether we're going to be these domestic slaves who are just baby factories. Our life is not, up to us. We're subjugated by men. And we're
Tia Tosago said she's the goddess of death. Yeah, it sounds like it, man. It just seems like, an article about abortion and then, feeding off the blood of men. And I don't know, like I thought I saw the cover where she was holding like a bunch of different men's like severed heads and stuff like that. I thought that was one of the depictions. And yeah, I mean, anything that would influence women in the 70s, housewives, to just abort their babies and leave their husbands and, go out and work and stuff. I don't know. It just seems to me like it was a social experiment, maybe even a test experiment that a lot of people ended up getting duped by it. They ended up getting brainwashed, and they passed down their ideals to their children, and their children, that's all they knew.
Just forced to give birth and be chained to the stove until we die. Or we're going to become vengeful like goddesses who get our revenge against the evil, oppressive patriarchy. So I'm not saying Hindus believe this. I'm saying feminists use these angry, vengeful goddess archetypes as like a cultural weapon to push the propaganda. But if you do go back to ancient times, that was often the role of a goddess figure, was fertility, domination of men, or revenge of men against men through sex. So if you look at even a lot of the ancient Roman gods, a lot of the ancient Greek gods, and you read the mythology, there's often this, the gods are always fighting, right? They're always at war. Pagan gods are always fighting with each other, kind of like humans. And the way that the female goddesses usually get back at the men is by, eating their offspring, seducing them, using their sexuality as a weapon to get revenge, things like that. And so the feminist movement loves that. They love reading that mythology and turning it into like a feminist cry to battle.
It's so interesting how, I mean, the polar opposite of like feminists could be, the men that would be, I guess, in the same realm of like a Myron Gaines, like the complete polar opposite of a feminist would be someone like Myron, who obviously hates women, is possibly in the closet, and all he preaches about is men being separate from women, keeping, women in a completely different house than you if you're in a relationship with them, and just like shacking up with your boys and stuff. It's like, I don't think either end is right. I think there's definitely a happy medium, where men and women can work together and come together and enhance each other's lives. But you have these extremes of feminism that, are out for revenge for the patriarchy. And then you have, people like Myron, who claims that he likes women, whatever, but in all of his rhetoric completely abdicates against it. And unfortunately, a lot of young guys are getting swayed by Myron and, other people in that sphere. And yeah, it shouldn't be someone to follow. I mean, men should have enough sense to understand that this is just controversial entertainment at the end of the day. It's not something to actually follow and take seriously.
Yeah, your book spends a lot of time on 3 ancient goddesses, specifically Lilith, Kali, and Inanna.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about Lilith and Inanna and kind of like how they shaped modern feminism?
Yeah. So Inanna was one of the most important goddesses in ancient Sumeria. She was kind of one of the top tier ones. There was a lot of temples built to her. One of the oldest goddess stories that we have, one of the oldest archetypes that we have. And something you'll find with her that's pretty common across all of these goddess archetypes is that they're a mother, so they give life, they give birth. They're usually also fertility goddesses. They use sexuality, like I said, as a weapon or as a way to get power or control because they don't have the monopoly on force. The big male gods are stronger, physically or whatever it might be. And in ancient times, when you were worshiping one of these goddesses like Inanna, you would usually go to a temple prostitute. And there was this sense that female sexuality was like a way to connect with the divine. And so prostitutes were often venerated, at least temple prostitutes, maybe not street prostitutes, but temple prostitutes were venerated. They were held in high regard. So it's like an early example of female sexuality being used as this way to elevate women because it can be a weapon. Sexuality for women and seduction and fertility is a power that we have that men don't have.
Yeah, I mean, being able to, I think, wasn't that the whole story of like Cleopatra? And I mean, wasn't she able to sway somebody by her sexuality? I'm pretty sure. Wasn't it Julius Caesar or something like that? I think so. I might be wrong. I don't know. Quintos Gross came back. He said Lilith in the Bible is Adam's first wife and origin of succubus demon in Christian lore. I thought I've heard of that. I thought that was what that musical festival was named after, Lilith Fair, where it was basically just a bunch of like female musicians and stuff for the majority. That's why it was called Lilith Fair, because it was basically like all women performers. But yeah, I figured that's what they were referring to, the Lilith, that one that was in the Bible. So yeah,
we're the people who basically get to decide who gets to reproduce. Like I said, unless you're grabbing war brides or something, but that wasn't most men through most of history. And Lilith was.
I just want to clarify really quick.
Yeah,
so
sure.
temple prostitutes, I kind of have a guess of what that is. Like,
Yeah.
Is that a priestly woman that would participate in like a fertility ritual with men? For some kind of explain what that is.
Yeah, it kind of depended on the culture and the time because it changed and it differed a little bit, but it was a religious sacrament of sorts in the pagan world. You'd go to the temple, you would meet with the temple prostitute, you would, have some kind of relations with her, and that would be a way to commune with the divine or a way to give an offering. And that's something that has continued, like the modern occult rituals are kind of based on that. They kind of take those ideas and use them in occult rituals because that's all the occult is really, is like a secretive type of esoteric religious practice that takes a lot of the ancient stuff like Hermeticism, paganism, and turns it into like ritual magic.
You've written that one of the earliest modern movements to bring these ancient goddesses back was a religion called, is it called Wicca or witchcraft technically?
Wicca is a type of witchcraft, so
Got
it's
it.
like a subset.
Got it.
Yeah.
So just maybe a theology known as witchcraft or religion known as witchcraft. How do you define witchcraft and how is it connected to feminism?
Witchcraft, I took a whole chapter on it to explain kind of the history of it and how it's always been a way for women who felt like they were outside of the competitive female hierarchy to have power, to get revenge, to think of the archetype of the witch, like the wicked witch with the big nose. She's always ugly and haggard. She's always dressed in black, wearing the pointy hat. She lives in a cabin off on the edge of the woods away from the town. She scares the children. She kidnaps and eats the children. And she like think of Snow White, think of Sleeping Beauty, like all of the fairy tales that we have. The witch is always trying to hurt the young, beautiful maiden, trying to poison her with an apple, trying to steal her youth, steal her beauty. These archetypes exist for a reason. There's always been some women who don't compete well within the hierarchy for mates. So if you're a pretty girl that men like, you're charming, and men want to marry you, the system works great for you. But there's always this minority of women who, for whatever reason, whether they're physically repulsive to men, maybe their personality type is very combative and unappealing for men, and they're kind of shunned by the patriarchy. It's like, ugh, go over there. We don't really want anything to do with you. We want the beautiful, young, nice girls that are going to make good wives. And throughout history, and this is not just according to me, there's a witch who teaches about this at New York University that I reference in my book. This is from her perspective as a second-generation witch herself, that those women have always gone outside of society and practiced witchcraft as a way to have some power, have some influence, get some revenge, take back what they feel they deserve, that they're not getting, that the rest of society is benefiting from. So this whole thing where men choose women and women choose men and they get married and they have a nuclear family, if that doesn't work for them, witchcraft is very appealing because it's always very anti-patriarchy. It's also very anti-Christian. It's a way to kind of fight back as a woman who the system doesn't work for. So that's why we have the archetype of the witch. But in actual history, witches, everybody's heard of like the witch trials and, burning witches at the stake and things like this. And in the middle of the 20th century, there was this big effort to make the witch into a sympathetic character, starting with L. Frank Baum in The Wizard of Oz. Now, L. Frank Baum's mother-in-law was named Matilda Joslyn Gage. She was one of the prominent suffragettes, a good friend of Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the two big figures of women's suffrage. And L. Frank Baum lived with her for a long time and was very heavily influenced by her, and he wrote the character of Glinda the Good Witch after her. Now, Matilda Joslyn Gage wrote a book called Woman, Church, and State. And this was her explaining how she felt that Christianity and the state came together to oppress women, and that Christianity was the root from which women were oppressed, and that if we want to have real feminism and we want real women's liberation, we've got to get rid of Christianity. So
because there's a male god. I think that's kind of like the main point of it, is like anything that has like a male god to it, it's still falling into the position of serving a man. And if they're completely against that, then yeah, it makes sense that they would want to dissolve Christianity and form their own religion where they have the power and they are the gods, or they can worship, these female goddesses and stuff and completely X men out completely.
When L. Frank Baum wrote The Wizard of Oz, this was a big influence on him. And that was the first time that we've seen somebody try to make a witch into the good guy, basically. But then that kind of continued post World War II, when the culture wars began ramping up again, we saw stuff like the old TV show Bewitched, where it's a witch named Samantha who's cute and adorable, and she wiggles her nose and casts spells, and she marries her husband, and her husband's always telling her not to use her witchcraft. You be a normal woman. You don't use your witchcraft. You be a good wife. And that was another kind of cultural attempt to say, if you read between the lines, it's saying, hey, women and their powers and influence, whether it's their sexuality or their spirituality, why should that be oppressed by bad men? Maybe the witch is really the good guy. Maybe she's the rebellious woman that's not going to let men push her around and tell her what to do. And then now, in the last few years, we have Wicked, which is this other big cultural phenomenon with Ariana Grande. And again, we see a witch character who is really the good person, but is being painted as bad when it's unwarranted. And she's actually this sympathetic character who's fighting for what's right, and she's just misunderstood. So throughout all of history, it was never that way. Witches were persecuted, and people think that's because they were opinionated women. That's not the reason at all. If you actually go back and read some of the things that were being written around the time of the prominent witchcraft trials, a lot of the people who were, not saying that there weren't people who were wrongly accused or wrongly tortured or anything like that. There certainly were. But a lot of the people who were persecuted by the church for doing witchcraft were abortion providers. So witches had herbal remedies and knew how to do like kind of primitive surgical abortions and things like that. They had tinctures, they had herbal remedies to induce abortions, and they often did do ritual magic. That's where the broomstick comes from. It's a little graphic, but in my book, I explain where the idea of the witch riding the broom comes from. So in medieval times, there was a practice in witchcraft of using like, it wasn't LSD because that hadn't been synthesized yet, but there were like natural things like ayahuasca or other type of psychedelic drugs, hallucinogenic drugs. Mushrooms would probably be the primary one. They would make like a paste or a lubricant out of that and put it on a broomstick and use it in a sex ritual. So sex is always the most powerful way to do ritual magic because the emotions are so heightened, and the belief is that you can kind of access the divine through climax, through this heightened emotional state. So that's why almost every famous occultist you've heard of, like maybe somebody like Aleister Crowley, they're always doing ritual sex magic. It's because it's supposed to be the most powerful type of magic. That goes back to the temple prostitution, that goes back to ancient times. So witches would indeed use hallucinogenic tinctures as like a lubricant, and then use something like a broomstick and do ritual magic. And that's where the idea of flying on a broomstick came from. And
Damn. That's crazy, dude. I had no idea this whole time. I thought the broomstick was just like this magical thing that helped them fly. I had no idea that there was so much like crazy like sexual ritual connected to it. That's just wild, man. But I think I did mention on not the last stream, but maybe the one before it, that I did actually come in contact with a couple women actually that were Wiccans that practice witchcraft and stuff, but they were very kind to me. I tried not to really poke and pry too much into their practices and stuff. I just kind of acted a little aloof because I didn't want them to put a curse on me. But for the most part, they were really good at like home remedies and mixing things, whatever, to detox you. If you wanted to, kind of flush your system and just kind of reset it a little bit, they were really good for that. And I never really try to cross them or, get in any type of like debates with them and stuff, because like I did not want to I didn't want to claim any of that negative energy, if you know what I mean.
So when you see witches flying on broomsticks, that's like a subtle way of saying what they were doing. Same thing with the pointy hat. The pointy hat actually comes from Kabbalah. A lot of medieval witches practiced Kabbalah, and there was like a black triangular kind of pointy hat that people would wear back then when they practiced Kabbalah, and that's where the witch's hat comes from. So
But where does that come from originally? Like the pointy hat, like what does that symbolize?
I'm not sure what it symbolizes. There's a lot. You always see threes a lot, anything in threes. Even in Christianity, we have the Trinity. Three is like kind of a sacred geometry thing.
Got it. So it's a triangle.
Yes, it's a
essentially.
triangle.
That makes sense.
So from ancient Kabbalah is where the witchcraft hat kind of originates from. And again, this is not Rachel telling you as a Christian. This is me listening to lectures and reading books written by witches, modern day witches, who are telling you proudly what their heritage is. So if you think I'm wrong, you got to go take it up with them. That's what they told me. And a lot of witches were actually prosecuted for practicing witchcraft, doing spellcraft. Another really common reason a witch might have been persecuted or burned at the stake was they were the primary purveyors of poison. So if you wanted to poison someone, you went to a witch to get a poison so that you could poison someone, often men. So it's a really interesting historical fact that women have always used poison as like a primary means of unaliving someone, whereas men tend to use more brute force, that sort of thing. And as we developed testing to identify if somebody was murdered with poison, poisonings went down. It's kind of interesting, but that was like a primary method. If you wanted an abortion, if you wanted to kill someone by poison, if you wanted to do ritual sex magic, you went to the witch who lived outside of town.
So if you had to break,
That's so crazy. It just kind of reminds me of the show I recently watched, Ozark, actually. One of the antagonists in the show, she has a husband that she ends up grinding up a bunch of cherry pits to poison him. And I believe she put it in his coffee. And yeah, he ended up keeling over and dying and stuff. But the thing about the cherry pits is that when you grind it up, it's not traceable as a poison. But I was like, damn, that's kind of crazy. Because, a lot of people are getting, killed in Ozark very brutally, but as far as the way that she did it, she poisoned her husband, and it was untraceable. So I just thought that was a really smart way to dispose of somebody that she wanted to do. I don't know, it's just crazy.
break down like the real reason the witch trials happened, the burnings, like would you say that all the women accused were accused of those two specific things, or was the Catholic Church and the aristocracy like more mad at the actual magic they were doing? Like, what were they upset with?
I think it was both.
Okay.
It was just that those were the things that were easier to prove. And again, I'm not saying there were not periods where maybe the Roman Catholic Church or the Puritans in New England didn't get hysterical and start persecuting people who were wrongly accused. I'm sure that happened. But another thing that happened during the witch trials that we never talk about is that at least 20% of the people who were burned or drowned as witches were men. So plenty of men got accused of witchcraft as well. And I think it was a time where you do have some political things complicating matters. The church is trying to, keep power and maintain power. That's true. But
Were there male witches? I thought they were called wizards. I mean, I don't know. I guess, I guess maybe there are male witches, I guess. I don't know.
it was the belief at the time that if you had somebody who was doing these things, that maybe the wrath of God and his judgment is going to come upon you and your people. If there's somebody in the town performing abortions on a regular basis, we need to get rid of that. So from the perspective of the church, these were things that, were illegal. They were crimes and they needed to be punished. But yes, if you want to think of it this way, they had legitimate reasons for wanting to persecute witches. And then, at times it probably did get out of control. And there were probably a lot of people who were falsely accused. And it did become a vehicle for people to make false accusations. But the idea that there was no basis for it whatsoever, and this common trope that you hear now that, the witch trials were just awful patriarchal men who didn't like women who had their own brains and their own thoughts. And so if you tried to speak up about an injustice, they would burn you as a witch. That's historically not accurate at all. Yeah.
In reality, they were providing abortions and poisoning people.
Yes.
And people were concerned that would spread. I mean,
Yes, exactly.
yeah, you never hear that, so that would
No.
make more sense.
Mhm.
I was always confused. watching like the Salem witch trial, like plays or like movies about that. I was like, what was going on here? Like, were people just crazy? But I mean, it seems like part of the history was left out.
Yes, a big part, a big important piece was left out. And that happens all the time. I'm a super huge history buff. I always have been. And it's because almost any time that you have a super dominant historical narrative, if you go back and look, there are things that will challenge it. There are counter narratives. And it's really tough to find exactly what the truth is because it kind of does depend on who's telling it. And they say that, history is written by the victors, and it's rewritten all the time. And I'm sure we'll talk about that with feminism, and we can talk about college textbooks and what they've done there. But yeah, if you go back, you can almost always find a counter narrative, and it takes some sifting through and some thinking about what was going on at the time, looking at the people involved, and who stood to gain from what to kind of form a picture of what's maybe more accurate. But there's a lot of history that we'll never fully know exactly what happened. As we get later into feminist history, I'd say from the 1700s on, because there was no telecommunications yet until, the early 20th century, we have extensive written documentation. So I do feel really, really confident that everything from, 1700 to the mid 20th century, we really know what was going on because the primary way that suffragists and feminists communicated their message, talked to each other, that's all written. They wrote each other letters. They wrote pamphlets. They delivered speeches. They debated publicly. Actually, a lot of people think women were never allowed to speak. They weren't. Rachel, you're on a podcast right now speaking, and you couldn't do that if it wasn't for feminism. That's not true at all. Women were in the 1700s publicly speaking and giving speeches and, making a living, touring, talking about these things.
I do want to connect the Protestant Reformation and how it paved the way for the rise of feminism. But first, I'm not sure if you've seen this stat. It was in 2002, only 30% of American women identified as feminist. And by 2020, that has doubled. And among Gen Z women, 68% of them identify as feminist.
Damn, 68%? That's crazy, dude. And it's like you can't go backwards. It's like once a modern woman gets like a taste of what it feels like to earn her own money, accomplish her own goals, get her degrees, get her own house and all that stuff, basically establish her own independence. It's going to be so hard for her to revert back to getting on a man's program, being his helpmate and being his support system because she's already had to support herself. It's like there's just no gear switch there. So it's cooked, man. Like it really is. It's crazy. Like you would have to find a woman that isn't brainwashed by modern feminism, that, maybe she had a traditional upbringing, maybe wasn't on social media and didn't have a lot of outside influences to really kind of grab hold of them and mold them into what the 68% of women are. That's just crazy, man.
And at the same time, the fastest growing religion among Gen Z women in America isn't Christianity and it isn't atheism, it's witchcraft.
Yes.
Do you think the rise of feminism and the rise of witchcraft is a coincidence, or do you think they're the same movement?
I definitely think they're the same movement. So that's why in the book I take a lot of time to show the historical thread from ancient times through medieval times all the way till now. And of course, I'm not going to make it a 5,000 page book where I'm covering every single century of history. I just kind of weave some important moments together through the ages to kind of show it started as a spiritual battle. It's still a spiritual battle. And then the politics gets weaved in, of course. So Susanna Budapest, who is a Czechoslovakian witch, she was an immigrant here in the 60s. I think she actually came during World War II because she was escaping some of the stuff that was going on in Eastern Europe at the time. She was the first to get witchcraft laws overturned in the United States, in California, where she lived, under religious freedom clauses. And she herself, who is still around, I believe she's still around. She was around during Trump's last term, leading spell casting rituals against Trump with all her witches that are on Facebook and TikTok who follow her. She's a much older lady now, but she's still practicing witchcraft and, cursing Donald Trump with her.
It's like a
with her spells.
13,000 member Facebook group, I believe.
Yes,
Like it was like a
yes.
lot of people.
It's a
passed
lot
this.
of people.
And they did it against Brett Kavanaugh too,
Yep.
I believe.
Yeah.
What were they trying to accomplish? Just give him bad luck?
Yes.
Okay.
To prevent them from coming to power, prevent them from getting, their agenda passed. Because, of course, from their perspective, Donald Trump's going to enslave all the women and Brett Kavanaugh's going to enslave it's going to be the Handmaid's Tale, right? That's what they think. So this woman said that feminism is just the political arm of a spiritual battle. That's according to a witch herself. She says this is a spiritual battle, and feminism is just that political arm to help us with the political power aspect that we need to have the freedom to do things like practice witchcraft. Abortion, that's a big one. When Roe versus Wade was overturned a few years ago, and it went back to the states, there were multiple organizations, including Native American organizations, the Satanic Temple, and multiple Wicca and witchcraft covens who contested the changing of the laws because they said abortion is a ritual sacrament for them and should be protected under religious freedom laws. So this is not Rachel. People, off the bat when they see me and they hear me start talking, they go, "Oh, she's one of those crazy Christians that thinks everything's the devil." Like I'm Bobby Boucher's mother in The Water Boy, and I think everything's the devil. No, I'm telling you, they're the ones who tell me witchcraft is a spiritual battle for feminism, for women's freedom, for revenge against the patriarchy.
You're saying that the church, it's a church of Satan?
Yeah.
Is suing the state of Texas?
Yes, they did. They contested the change in the abortion laws.
Like the heartbeat bill?
Yes.
Because they see abortion as a ritual sacrifice, so it's necessary to their church.
Yes, exactly. And if you go on TikTok and you search the hashtag witchtalk, you can find dozens of female creators on TikTok who will show you how to make a ritual out of your abortion. They'll show you how to make an altar, how to use the tissues that are removed from you in a ritual magic spell, and ritualize your abortion to give you power, to give you things that you want in life. Like
That's crazy, man. It's like sacrificing a virgin to get what you want. And it just seems like, I don't know. Like, I don't even want to search this thing up. You guys can do that if you want. But it just seems like, they're using the abortion as kind of a launch pad to, I guess, get whatever they want, which is, I guess, more freedom or whatever material desires they have and stuff. Or I don't know. It's just, I don't know, dude. Like sacrificing virgins for whatever. I know that's been a thing like over the course of human history, but the way these witches are doing it, like, I don't know, man. I just, like, when it comes to abortion, I kind of think that it's kind of a way of, I think there's definitely reasons for abortion, for specific reasons, but I think for general purposes, I don't think that it's necessary. I think there's just people that do not want to take responsibility for their carelessness, mistakes, and if they're not ready, then they need to get the support so that they can get ready. But I understand that there are extenuating circumstances that happen where, girls are taken advantage of and, they have no control over that and then they end up pregnant and all that stuff. Like, I think those cases, of course, we should try to, get those women help and stuff. But as far as women that are just out here, being irresponsible, and just kind of throwing caution to the wind and understanding that, oh, I have an exit strategy, I think that those people, yeah, they probably are not fit for being mothers and stuff because they don't have the right mindset. and maybe it would be a mercy for those if those children were born. But I don't know, man. I think it's kind of just a sign that you need to kind of relax. You need to kind of take responsibility, and now it's out of your hands. You got a whole nother life you got to worry about, and I don't know. I just think that when men are hit with the woman that they're with is pregnant and they feel like they're not ready, something clicks with some men, most men, that they're like, okay, I'm ready to rise for the challenge. I'm ready to take this on. I'm not going to run, like this is my imperative to, continue my legacy and, support my wife and future child. And it's like men, there's usually a switch that happens in men. They're like, yeah, absolutely. I don't want to run from this. This is my responsibility, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that this baby is, safe, alive, and healthy and all that stuff. But then I get it when the man isn't there. Maybe the woman doesn't even know who the father is and stuff. There are alternatives. You could give the baby up for adoption. That way it still has a chance to live a semi-normal life. But I just think that, that should definitely be something to be considered, because there's too many people that try to take it the easy way out, and that's just by wiping the slate clean, and they do it over and over again. And I don't know, it's really sad.
People think this is Rachel being crazy. It's really not. Like you said, witchcraft is the fastest growing religion, especially among Gen Z women in America, and they do mostly identify as feminists, and they do think that from a spiritual perspective, these things are empowering. So that the reason I have an argument that is original to me when I debate people on abortion, and this will show you that what I'm saying is true and that this is how they actually feel. Because in the 90s, you probably don't remember because you're very young, but Bill Clinton would say abortion should be safe, legal, and rare, right? That was the progressive stance in the 90s. Now we have switched to my body, my choice, abortion on demand. You are not allowed to put any restrictions on it. No uterus, no opinion. And what this kind of proves when I put forth this argument, it goes like this. I'll ask a woman if she thinks abortion should be legal. She'll say yes. And I say all the way up until birth. And sometimes they'll say yes. Sometimes they'll say, well, I would cut it off here. I would cut it off there. And I say, what about this? A woman goes in to get an abortion at 8 weeks. And the abortion doctor says, good news, we have new technology. We have artificial wombs. We've just created artificial wombs that are successful. And you don't have to kill this fetus. You can have it implanted into an artificial womb, and you won't have any legal obligation to it. You won't have any moral obligation to it. It's just going to be a simple laparoscopic procedure, no more risk than an abortion. And, the only difference is, rather than killing it and removing it, we're just going to remove it alive and let it gestate and fully grow and be born. I say, if there was such an option as this available, would you then still be in favor of abortion? And I've not once had a woman say no. Every single time they say, I still think she should be able to choose to kill the fetus.
That's interesting. It's like, could you imagine being that fetus that's transferred to the artificial womb, and you're born and you have no mother, you have no father? You probably by then you probably have been set up with a mother and father through abortion and all that. Not abortion, through adoption and all that stuff. But that's just, I don't know, it's just weird. To me, it's very weird. Like, maybe you could be on a waiting list, maybe because if there's like a massive amount of women that opt for this option, then you're going to have a lot of children born without mothers and fathers, but they're just artificially grown and stuff. I've heard of test tube babies and stuff like that. I know that's kind of similar in the whole thing. T. Tosco said similar tech already exists. I know there is that thing about surrogate mothers, women that, option for, women to get artificially inseminated, and then they have the babies that are grown in test tubes and stuff. Test tube babies. I don't really know too much about that, but I don't know. I think women would still want to. It makes sense to me that a woman would want to still have the control over whether a baby is born or not. Because yeah, even if you relinquish all of your parental rights towards the child, there still would probably be later down the line, possibly, that you might want to reconsider that option and maybe, reconnect with the child that you gave up. I don't know. Maybe there might be a case where that has happened. I don't know.
And then I ask why. And they don't really know. And they're hesitant. It's like they know I've kind of caught them in a trap. They know it doesn't sound good to people that they just said that. But really what they're saying is women need power. And one of our greatest powers that we have is to decide who gets to live and who gets to die. That this is like a deeply held ancient power struggle, and that women need the power to decide which men get to have babies and which men don't for any reason at any time. So it kind of just gives the game away a little bit psychologically, that even if they don't mean to phrase it that way, or even if they don't mean to put it that way, something deep in their brain is telling them, I need the power to decide who gets to be born. And that's like a very, very ancient concept. It is a holy sacrifice type of a thing within witchcraft.
That's very interesting.
The people who
it just seems like, women having the option to opt for an artificial womb for the baby that they do not want would be like an ideal option. But the fact that they're like, no, I still want to have the power to just kind of delete it and stuff. I don't want to have that option taken away. It does kind of feel a little strange, It's like if you didn't have the guilt of having, a baby aborted on your hands, I would think women would want to go for that, but I guess that's not the case here, at least in the majority reasons. That was very interesting. Very interesting. Let's see. I think there was another one that was sent to me. Let's see. I think this was another one from Teen Toasted Ghost. It was talking about Draft the Feminists, and I wanted to check this one out too. So let's check this one out here.
Do you think Gen Z women will be drafted for Iran? It would be the first draft where I think they qualify.
I think one of the best things we could do to fix this problem is draft women, and here's why. Women in the military, as soon as they get called up for active duty, there's this phenomenon. The first thing they do is get pregnant. And then they can't be called into battle, right? So I think if we did draft women, if we said, okay, feminists, fair. You guys want equality? Because one of the big arguments out there right now, popularized by people like my husband or Brian Atlas, is, hey, women don't have to sign up for the draft and men do. We could be called into battle at any time and you guys can't. So why should you have equal political say? And I think we should say, okay, if you want to vote, sign up for the draft. And I think if we just had that requirement, a whole lot of women would go, I don't know if I'm that passionate about voting. Maybe I'm not. And
it's
then
really interesting. Like if you made all women have to sign up for the draft, but you don't have to get drafted if you have a kid. I wonder how many would have kids, genuinely.
So I always say that I don't believe women when
have
they say
kids,
they want
or
true
also
equality.
They probably would either have kids or claim to have kids, like, I don't know. I think there would be some weird loophole, where, they just say that, oh yeah, I'm going to just, if I can't have kids, I'm going to adopt, because there are going to be some women that are going to be, barren or not be able to have children, through whatever medical reasons. And then they just find a way to take ownership of a child so they can get out of it. I think that there'd be a lot of loopholes that women would definitely use to get out of being drafted.
Reason I don't believe that is because 90% of all infrastructure jobs, which are usually difficult, dirty, and dangerous jobs, are still held by men. Women have had 100 years to decide that they want to be trash collectors, wastewater treatment managers, lumberjacks, working on, oil rigs, power linemen, things like this, roofing, stuff that you can die in your job. Men still overwhelmingly die on the job at far higher rates than women. We still do most of the same jobs that we did 100 years ago. We basically just swapped farm labor for HR work, but we're still mostly just secretaries, nurses, early childhood educators, retail workers, line cooks, waitresses, things like that. So when women want to take on jobs that they could die in, that are going to break their bodies down, at a fast rate, they're going to find out right away. Like, I'll have people insist to me, women can be roofers. And I'm like, where's all the female-owned, female-only roofing companies? They tried to do that in England, and I think it survived a couple of years, and then it went out of business, right?
Yeah,
So
what would society look
So Chiato's Ghost came back. He says pregnant women are not allowed to be deployed if a woman is pregnant and she cannot and she cannot do basic training. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean there's going to be that military standard, basic training, and if you don't get through, yeah, it's like you don't meet the standard. So I mean that makes sense, man. It's like that's kind of like the main reason why we shouldn't really have women in the military for that, because it's like, yes, they are weaker than men. I mean, sure, they can work out in other, ways in terms of like being like medevac or whatever like that, but, or, any type of position that doesn't require battle. I definitely think that, there are definitely areas that women could definitely take. But as far as being on the front lines, I don't think they would be that effective.
like if we reached true equality? Like, can you paint a picture of like what a woman's life would look like?
Oh, it would be it would be horrible. If women had to equally really do what men have to do, if they had the same exact standards where you couldn't get by at all, you couldn't the fact that you're pretty or that men might want to sleep with you or marry you or have children with you, if that just was out of the equation. There's actually a woman who tried to do this. She dressed as a man and lived like a man for like a year, and it was so awful she quit and then ended up very tragically committing suicide. But she said life is horrible for men. It's so bad for men. I had no idea. If women had to, like, let's say 50% of garbage men had to be women now, then I would take feminism a lot more seriously. If you had to get up at 4 a.m, get on the back of a garbage truck, you've seen the guys where they hold on to the thing and then they got to stop and pick up the trash, throw it in the back. They're dealing with dirty things, sharp things, dangerous things. They're using their physical strength to hold on to the back of the truck all day and hoist, things that are 30 to 50 pounds up over their heads into a truck. If they had to do farm labor, if they had to do things like underwater welding that only men do, these
Work on oil rigs, perhaps.
Yes, and everybody's probably seen the videos of men doing these things. They're getting, like, my husband used to have a job in food factories as a robotics mechanic where he'd have to go down into like really tight, dangerous spaces where he had to wear like a gas mask. And if there was a leak or anything, he could die from inhaling ammonia. He saw a guy get all of his flesh burned off his entire lower arm. Saw a guy cut his hand off on a lathe once. Having to drive people to the ER bleeding and hoping that they don't die as part of your job, versus women who still, I'm not saying there aren't some important things women do. Of course, we want nurses, and we like when we have women, teachers and things like that. And women have always done those jobs. That's fine. But they're not doing the really difficult, dirty, dangerous work that men do. And if they had true equality and had to do that, I think they would all pretty much immediately go back in the kitchen. It's like that meme where World War III starts and suddenly the feminists are all washing dishes in the kitchen. Because, yeah, that's what we see. Like, when female...
It's crazy that it would come to that. It would have to come to that for women to realize that, like, I'm in a really privileged position in our society in terms of like what I get as a woman, and in terms of, their position and pay and, just preferential treatment and stuff, being able to be hired at a similar position to a man, even though they may not be as qualified as the man, but they just were hired through diversity purposes and stuff. It's like, I don't know, man. I think if everything was kind of 50-50, I think there would be still women that are going to pretty much settle into specific roles that kind of cater to their comfort. You know, I mean, I don't think a woman is going to want to opt for backbreaking labor if the pay is really good. I think they would probably take the average to median pay, you know, if they get to kind of sit down all day, you know, and just kind of be behind a desk in an air conditioning office and stuff. I think that would be a better option for them. I just don't think women are really built to carry stress like that. You know, I'm not saying all women. I just think that the majority of women, you know, like I think in terms of like their mental health, you know, I think it's because I've said this before. I said that, you know, women statistically take more time off than men. You know, they have, you know, personal days, they have, you know, time of the month and stuff like that. They have grieve stuff, maternity leave, all that stuff, you know. And I would say that, well, I mean, men do have paternity leave too, but it's not nothing, because I've taken paternity leave and it's literally like a week, you know. So I mean, that's probably, you could probably take more, but I don't know I have not done that. So you know, as a man, I do feel like a man has to produce for the family, and taking time off, you know, to kind of look after his wife while she just had a baby. Yeah, the most I can do is probably like a week. And then after that, I feel like I need to contribute, you know, financially to the family, you know? So, yeah.
Soldiers get, you know, called to action. They end up pregnant immediately. And we just don't see women clamoring for equality in those jobs. And really what they want is, you know, power, opportunity, and self-enrichment. Fine, that's fair. But again, men don't have power without all this responsibility. And that's what women always miss. They don't realize that, yes, maybe men have some advantage. Maybe they have some power. Maybe they're bigger and stronger, so they're always going to have the monopoly on force. But the responsibility and the difficulty that goes along with those things, you probably don't actually want that. And a lot of women will say they do until they have to experience it. And then they're like, okay, never mind. So I think it'd be great if we I
think women have like this power trip, you know, you give women a little bit of authority and, you know, it kind of goes to their head most of the time, you know. And I would say that companies that are, you know, headed by women and stuff, it could, I mean, I don't know. I don't really see a lot of all women companies, you know, like where it's just women, because I would think that would be a total nightmare, you know. But I think where you have, you know, women CEOs that, you know, I think they would have to nearly be married to the job and not have like a family to be dedicated to be completely like focused on the task at hand and the job and stuff like that. I just don't think the balance would be there for a woman to be successful in a high level CEO position and have a family, because I just don't think that the balance is there. I think that there would always kind of be something that a woman would be leaning more towards, and then eventually her priorities would have to get straight, that she would probably want to settle back with a family, you know, or she would probably think that she doesn't have that option and should be with the job, but she would be living in regret. So yeah, either way, I think a woman in the workplace, you know, eventually she would like to kind of maybe ease up and not have as much time dedicated to that job and maybe more dedicated to the family. I think that she would get a little bit more fulfillment out of that.
Okay, if you want to be equal, then you got to sign up for the draft. And we're going to start recruiting women straight out of high school for frontlines combat in the military. We're going to recruit them for the dirty, dangerous, and difficult jobs. We want 50% representation for women in all of the top 20 jobs where men are dying on the job. We want that to be 50% women. Hope you make it. You know, good luck to you. If there was something like that, like a lottery where, like, say you're a senior in high school and there's all these college things you can do and there's all these jobs you can do, and we just do it as a lottery. You just draw a random number and that's the job that you get. And women had equal representation in men's jobs, feminism would end tomorrow. It would be over tomorrow. They would say, in fact, they would demand that we end feminism, because they say this is not safe. This is horrible.
Yeah, they would realize their limits, and they'd realize that, you know, we can't do the same thing that men do. It would come to their senses. The whole, what's it called? The trance would be broken of this whole feminism trance that, you know, men are equal to women and that, you know, women can do anything that a man can do. It would completely go out the window. and they would snap out of it and they'd be like, no, I want to have a chance to live and have a chance to, have a family and stuff, if that's what it means. If I have to give up my life and stuff to be on the front lines and stuff and be part of this massive body pile up, like I would rather opt for the former option, and it makes sense. I just don't think women would be that effective in a frontline situation, It just doesn't make any sense.
Horrible. Look what you're doing. Women can't do this. And that's all of the anti-suffragist women made these arguments in the 1800s. They said, look, the purpose of government is to protect property and people. We're women. We can't do that. We can't protect national borders. We can't defend people. If someone's being violently, assaulted, you don't call a woman to come save you. You call a policeman, right? If your house is on fire, you call the fireman, and rarely police women are rarely taken seriously, in most situations. When you see them out, it's like you're usually getting hit on because it's just, I don't know. Simps are weird out there.
Hey, Camp.
What's up, dude? Who is this?
Hey, AJ, what's up, dude?
AJ, how you been, sir? Welcome back to this channel.
Hey.
How you been, sir?
Hey, man. Good. I was waiting for you to touch on the ponytail patrol because that's what I call female cops. Is ponytail patrol?
Female. I mean, I've seen so many videos of like guys trying to hit on like female cops and stuff while they're on the job, and it's like they're just not taken seriously. They're just like, "Whoa, shit,"
But they get,
handcuff me, please.
They get disarmed. They're a liability. There was like 3 videos in 2025 that went viral. The one female cop, she was in her car. She pulled out her weapon, and then the guy grabbed her gun from her. And she's like, "Please don't shoot me!" And then the male cop had to shoot the guy. And then the other lady, she was the guy. He was legally carrying the firearm. Do you remember? And the female cop grabbed the guy's gun and shot him with his own gun. It's like there's an elephant in the room and we just can't talk about it. Why would you want female cops? It makes no sense. I'm 6'3" and 250.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really think that a 125, 135 pound, or even like 180 pound, 5'4" cop can take me down? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Why would you ever have it to where the people who are supposed to be, enforcing laws, meaning the monopoly on force, you know what I'm saying? Like they're the enforcement arm of rights, and you have women doing it. It makes no sense. Men own the monopoly on force, but you have women doing that job when they can be overpowered by a 14-year-old boy. How does that make it?
It just seems highly ineffective, and a waste of tax people's dollars, like I just don't think that, I think our money could be going towards, and all
the articles, Camp, about how people are just now realizing that the men's World Cup team has to give half their money to the women now.
It's like I did not see that. No, I forgot. I didn't hear about that. I haven't really been following the World Cup at all, like really, to be completely honest with you. I watched Argentina today, but that's the big extent of it.
It is soccer. I mean, let's be honest. You know what I mean? But
well, no, I said this earlier when the USA got knocked out or whatever. I'm like, great, we can drop this whole performative act of caring about soccer and go back to watching football and baseball. Because it's just like, I don't know, like everybody knows Ronaldo, everybody knows Messi, whatever. You can't name more than like 5 American footballers. You can't, and that's just what it is. It's just like we just don't care about it like that.
Yeah.
But it's like
5th level athletes play football. I mean, soccer. If we were to actually give a damn about soccer, we would win the World Cup every year.
Yeah, but we don't.
We win the most medals in the Olympics, and we win the most golds. We have the best athletic talent pool in the world. We just don't have our best athletes playing soccer. And everyone,
no, it's true.
Oh, you Americans cannot play football. No.
We just don't care about it. We don't prioritize it, But if there was an Olympic sport, I mean, that's the thing. That's the beauty about America, is that we're just a blend of a bunch of different nations and stuff. So we import the best of the best, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of our edge that we have, at least in the Olympics. So,
yeah, if I could just chime in here about this topic, the whole female happiness kind of paradox. It's just so funny that, you know, in the 40s, men start getting happier and women start getting more and more miserable, you know? And women have been brainwashed to where they're late teens, 20s, and even early 30s when they should be really dialing it in, getting married, having kids, because most people want kids. I would say 97% of women, about 90% of men want to be married and have kids. Now, my girl and I don't want kids. We're rare. You know what I'm saying? But here's the thing. Women have this thing where a woman always has, was it said?
Biological clock.
Can always change her mind, is the old say. A woman always has right to change her mind. These women will, when they're 35, 38, 39, all of a sudden they'll just do a 180 and say all of a sudden that they want to get married and have kids. After spending the last 15 years doing everything possible to make that decision harder. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that's kind of why I don't think men should be stepping in the frame of a woman by accepting their proposal, because a woman's mind can change, whereas a man's mind is typically made up on terms of the woman that he wants to marry. A man can, you know, go through a bunch of women, but once he finds the one that he's just like, that's the one that I want to spend the rest of my life with, and then he decides to marry her, it's like it's going to take pretty much hell and high water to get him to change his mind about that. He's probably going to be set in his decision, and he's not going to be veering off. He's going to be in it to win it, you know, to the very end. So,
and doesn't expect to be happy in his marriage.
No, it's a duty. You know what I mean? It's like, a duty. Yeah, it's a responsibility.
Yeah, that's the number one difference between men and women and marriage and careers. Hey, Camp, have they ever asked you, like, okay, when you look at jobs, what's the most important thing to you when you look at a job?
I mean, there's a couple things. I mean, I do care about pay.
Thank you. That's all you got to say.
Pays primary. Yeah, because I mean, honestly, dude, if I'm not making money, I'm gonna be out.
Women want time off, flexibility, all this other crap.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
If I'm working, I'm here to work, you know? So yeah.
And if I'm not happy at work, pay me more money and I'll be just fine, you know?
Right.
But women have these complex set of considerations when it comes to everything in their lives, and men don't. We'll work at the same company for 35 years. We'll root for the same basketball team for 35 years. We'll stay in the same marriage with a woman who doesn't really do what we want her to do, but we've made a commitment to something bigger than ourselves. That's how men are. And that's what makes us happy. So
yeah, I mean, it's like if my wife were to become like paralyzed, you know, and you know, I basically had to spoon feed her for the rest of my, I'm gonna be here for her, you know, because like that was the vow that I made, you know, and it's like I still, I think I said this like a while back, you know, I can't remember when I said it, but I did say that, you know, when men get together with women, you know, it's like we remember the origin of when we got together and we hold on to that, you know,
idealistic love.
Correct. You know, so like I will never, ever forget about how me and my wife got together and what drew me to her in the first place. And that's kind of what like keeps me with her, because I'm just like, dude, like we've had too much time invested, and to just walk away over like a simple argument, you know, it's like no matter what, you know, it's like we're never going to give up. I'm never going to surrender. And, you know, I made that pretty clear to her, you know, and she told me, she's like, well, you know, we just got to see, you know, time will tell and stuff, because, you know, my wife, she has been cheated on before in a previous relationship, and she had those trust issues. But I told her, I was like, look, you know, let time be the decider of that. You know, if you see that I am solid and I change your mind about it, then, you know, so be it, you know?
Well, there was Jeff St. James. He has a Ask a Brother podcast. He's a He's a friend of my channel. Check him out.
Mhm.
He had a live stream on the LeVar Ball situation,
Mhm.
where him and his wife are breaking up after 30 years. And he pulled up that study where these women quote that men are more likely to leave women if they get sick.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've heard that stat that
I
these
have
feminists
not,
are all
no.
saying that they're trying to say that a man's like 27 times more likely to leave his wife
Mhm.
when she gets sick. And Jeff, he's a therapist,
Mhm.
right? So he looked at the numbers. The study was flawed in that if couples dropped out of the study, it considered them to be divorced. So
Oh, so
let's
it
just
wasn't
say
it wasn't 100%
it was
accurate.
not accurate. When they
Wow.
actually put the variables, it actually showed that women are more likely to leave men, are 7 times more likely to leave men if a man gets sick or hurt.
Yeah, I think
But the
we've
way
seen that
Yeah.
happen actually.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And once we started looking at relationships with women based on happiness, which is fleeting, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Right.
Like all of a sudden relationships got cooked. Our grandparents and great grandparents didn't marry for happiness.
Yeah, they married
You
for
know what I mean?
duty. Yeah, it
Yes.
was duty,
Duty,
man.
honor, respect. Yeah, duty, honor, respect. If you don't have those three, I would say duty, honor, respect equals love. If you do all three of those things,
Mhm.
you have those three things added all together equals love. If you're missing even one of those things, you're cooked. You know what
But
I mean?
I
Cooked.
think modern women, they prioritize their happiness over their
Yeah.
family, you know? And
Yep.
if they're not happy, it's like they just feel like they need to go get happy somewhere else, you know? They need to start over and just, you know, it's not an easy decision, but it's like they're like, we have to do it because my happiness matters. And I'm like, what the hell, dude? It's like I'm over here, you know, working hard and everything like that. It's like the last thing I'm thinking about is my happiness. Like the most thing
Yeah.
that trumps everything is my responsibility to this family, and you know, keeping everybody safe and providing and making sure that, you know, we have our life and stuff. You know, it's like the sacrifice that a man makes is just it should be inherent. You know, I can't tell you that the men of today have this mindset, because I'm getting met with men that are just like, I just don't want to deal with this at all. You know, I just don't want to take on the responsibility. I would like to be in a 50-50 relationship where like we both, you know, contribute whatever, and like I just don't want to be this leader, you know. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. It's like I can't be behind that. I
Yeah.
can't even give you any advice to how you can move in the world if you don't want to
Yeah.
be a leader. It just doesn't, I don't know. It's like you kind of have to have to want to step up, you know, as
But
a
a
man.
woman wants to be in a relationship and then have you be emotionally intelligent enough to make her feel independent in a marriage. That's how a lot of modern women are. They want to feel independent in a marriage. But at the same time, they want to be able to take a pay cut, quit their job,
Mhm.
change careers, and you finance everything. That's just the way it works.
Right.
That's just and the sooner that guys realize that. A quick story for my dad. He divorced my mom. He's a doctor,
Mhm.
and my mom was always Miss Negative Nancy, just talking.
Mhm.
So my dad, I don't want to say he has authority issues, but like he always hated having a boss. So he finally got the scratch together to open his own practice.
Mhm.
So he wanted to open his own practice, and my mom was so he got rid of her ass. Right? He
Mhm.
moved to Vegas, started his own practice, and now his new girlfriend's like 2 years older than I am. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
It's crazy, but like he's happier in the bug and a rug. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Because he has a woman now that is on his program and probably is
Yeah.
supporting him and you know, in whatever he needs and stuff, and is being his helpmate, you know, and not trying
Yeah.
to, you know, compete with him or anything like that. So I mean, I think that's all we want, man, at the end of the day.
But her daughter, my dad's girlfriend's daughter, she works for Amazon, makes like 180 grand a year,
Mhm.
and she's with this guy who makes like less than half of what she makes, and she's been Miss Strong and Independent and has some apartment in downtown Seattle paying $5,000 a month for rent and blah blah blah. Well, now she met this guy who he makes like 70,000 a year. He works at like a brewery, and they've been dating for a while, and then he proposed and she said yes, and they're also all shocked because they didn't think she ever wanted to get married. And I'm like, all women want to get married,
Yeah.
but they're going to get divorced. Camp. They bought a house, they bought a $750,000 house before they got married. So they're
Wow.
not married yet. They have
Yeah.
a $800,000 house. She makes 180, 190K. He makes 80,000. I said, there's no way that's gonna work because
No.
when the mortgage comes, she has to pay 3/4 of the mortgage.
Right.
She can't take a break. She can't take a sabbatical. She
Yeah.
can't, and he's gonna be
It's all
riding
riding
his
on her.
scooter to the brewery. Yeah,
Damn.
yeah.
Yeah, and,
And-
you know that's what we were basically talking about last stream is that, you know, a woman is going to have to trade up eventually because that stress of being the breadwinner is not sustainable. You know, she's going to not respect the guy because she's going to feel like she's pulling the majority of the weight, which she is in that case, at least. And a woman needs a man to look up to. You know,
And heaven help if her friends have successful husbands or boyfriends.
oh,
then
to
you're
compare
done.
them to, oh fuck
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
because then it's
man,
just a
you're
constant reminder that I am losing, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and there's so
Yeah.
much, the grass is always greener, you know, outside of my relationship. So yeah, I mean, and that's another thing. Social media has gassed these women up too, you know, because now they're comparing not just with their girlfriends, but with the entire world, you know. And I've already said this. I think social media is just as big a detriment to women as, you know, adult content is for men, you know, because it reprograms their brain to think that there's just something better out there, you know, and it just makes this standard like completely unattainable, like this unrealistic standard that nobody can ever reach, you know. And the fact is, women have too many options, dude.
Did you ever watch HL Talk Thought? He has
I've never heard of that. No.
I'll check out his channel. He's my favorite channel on YouTube. He goes through women's TikToks who get divorced and regret their divorce. I don't like. Okay, I review TikToks on my channel, but I can't physically go through the whole storyline. I don't know how he does it. HL, if you're out there, you're the hero we all need. He goes through their TikToks and then he shows, I'm getting divorced, and then of course they're out there. This dating life sucks because they're getting pumped and dumped by a Chad. And then, of course, the last is my ex-husband moved on with a younger woman. Check him out. He tells the whole story of all of their TikToks.
We've already seen we've seen that story before. We can kind of already see how it's going to play out. You know, once a woman has already, you know, crossed the line and basically hit the wall and stuff, they think that they have one more round left, you know, where they can just, you know, play their chips and just see, you know, do one more round around the casino and see if they hit. And it just gets to a point where it's just a bunch of 20-year-old guys that are just looking to increase their notch count. You know, nobody's willing to take them serious. And it's like they get used and abused and they end up hating men when really it's just like, you know, if you just kind of learn to deal with the guy that you were with and stop thinking that there was something better out there, you know, you could have worked with him and built with him and stuff. But that's the thing, man. It's like women think that they have unlimited options because they're getting approached, they're getting drinks bought for them and stuff. Well, when the moment that they stop getting drinks paid for them, you know, that's when it gets real, you know, and that's when they gotta like, shit, I gotta pick one of these beta male orbiters that's around me, whatever, that's, you know, a simp and stuff that I don't really like. He's not like my third or fourth choice, but you know, he's going to have to end up being the last train leaving and I'm going to have to hold on for dear life, you know, because that's all she's got. The options are drying up.
Yeah, he did a video on this chick and she said, I thought I was happily married until I went on TikTok. The chick said that. She said she thought that her marriage was just fine. And then she went on TikTok and once again, their happiness is defined by other people. That's the most dangerous thing.
Yeah. It's like the whole keeping up with the Joneses and seeing what other people have and, you know, the places they're going and the designer and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, man, it's like it puts in the mind of a woman. It's like, well, why isn't the person I'm with working just as hard and making just as much that we can have this life too? You know, it's like, I'm not getting any younger. I just wasted my time here. You know, I could just go find one of these crypto millionaires or whatever and see. But it's just like, dude, these guys, these guys out here aren't looking for a wife either, man. They're just looking for another girl that's willing to, you know, sleep with them for an evening and then they'll dispose of them, you know?
I just don't get how these like 45, 55-year-old chicks, they've been out of the game for like 15, 20 years. or let's just say 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that they can divorce their husband. What do they think is waiting out there for them? That is the crazy part.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, I think you said it last stream actually, is that they're not just looking for something better, but they just come with all these extreme demands, like he's got to make 6 figures, he's got to, be, he's got to work a nice job. She's like, they don't know what job, has this type of money and stuff. Like they're not in any type of social circle where they can actually meet men like this. They just want to be set up with this, but then they have no idea like what this person wants or how they can keep this person or whatever. It's like, they're not even thinking about what the man wants. They're just thinking about what they want. And it's from a complete disadvantage. He was like, dude, you're cooked from the moment you step out the door. So,
yeah, and I don't feel bad for him.
No, you can't, man. It's their own choice, man.
Women don't get if their ex-husband checks their boxes, he's gonna check a lot of other women's boxes too. And the one thing, they're always good with custody and alimony and all this other stuff until he moves on and gets a new girlfriend. Then all of a sudden they're pissed off. Then all of a sudden he can't see his kids. Then all of a sudden they want more child support. Then it's like, you don't think that this guy, he's 54, 52, either former military or a tradesman, so he's in shape. You know what I'm saying? He's obviously
they don't want him. They don't want him, but they also don't want him to be happy either. It's just this weird like control mechanism that it's just kind of embedded in women, man. They just don't want to see men happy, Not all women, of course, but just the women that are divorced and stuff. They don't want to see their exes happy.
With social media, like, here's the thing. All the far left woke liberal stuff that women vote for and they're the primary victims of. So the LDHD TV thing, they're the ones who have the these knuckleheads coming to their sports and their changing rooms and all this other stuff. They're the ones who want the illegals in, and once the crime spikes, men are always the primary victims of crime, but when there's a crime spike, it's women who are getting snatched off the street. You know what I'm saying? When there's all these things with going into the workforce and their mental health and social media, they're voting for all this stuff and they're the primary victims of all of it. Us men, here's the thing, we've always been at the very, 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 very bottom. What feminism did is it opened them up to those bottom parts of society. You're what, 40, 41, 42?
43, yeah.
Yeah, yes. You're a little bit younger than I am. You and I never saw homeless women when we were young.
No,
I never saw them.
No, it was always homeless men. But now I'm starting to see it. Women now. I'm starting to see women and children. It's just like it's really sad.
It doesn't make any sense. And they're the ones who voted for all of this. They're the ones who thought that it would make them happy to be out here doing all the same crap as us men. I would say that there was a bunch of they were at the edge of a rock quarry with some bleachers watching us men crack rock with hammers, and like, we want to do that because it's sexist if we don't. And we were like, you guys don't want to come down here. It's not fun. Trust us.
You can't hang with us, man.
You bigots. But the foreman said, if you guys come down here, there's no going back up. And sure enough, they slid down that slide, and now they're cracking rocks just like us, and they're miserable. That's why 50% of doctors who are women and lawyers and IT people and engineers drop out of the field in the first 4 to 8 years.
Yeah.
Those are positions men could be having to get good jobs, to pay for family. But instead, these women are taking up slots in law school. How many times did Kevin Samuels interview these chicks who have these PhDs and these law degrees who didn't want to work after they got pregnant? So they have all this education, high price skills, and don't want to use it. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, they didn't want to pay significant bills after, their first child, and it's like they want to take a back seat in their whole relationship and still have the man lead, even though that they have this career and stuff. So, Tina Tosgos, welcome to the chat. How are you, sir? Exo
Good,
Charles.
Camp. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Exo Charles, welcome to the stream, sir. He says, I think women just feel more jealousy than men. They don't want other people to be happier or have something better than them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's absolutely true.
Actually, I can confirm it. My ex is
entertained.
I can confirm it. My ex is pissed that I'm actually doing better than her right now.
Better like financially or what? What are we talking about?
I'm doing way better financially than her. If she knew how much I had in my bank account, she'd be even my oldest son would agree that she wouldn't know how to handle it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just that, women, they wanted this, women wanted to have equal outcomes, or equal opportunity, but they didn't understand that the outcome was going to be what it was, and it wasn't going to be what they thought it was. They're realizing that, oh, this isn't fulfilling, like I thought it would be, but now I realize it's not, but now it's too late, because we can't put the genie back in the bottle now, because we've already come this far. The pendulum has already swung, do you think women are willing to go back in the kitchen and go back to the way things were? I don't think so.
But here's the thing: women have always worked, right?
Absolutely.
Rich white women didn't work, but there was more of a neighborhood economy. They worked retail. They were secretaries. They farming work. They worked at the market, and that money came and stayed into the neighborhood, right? But they weren't commuting. They weren't doing all the things men did, but they were going far away from home for jobs. So women have always worked. This feminist standpoint theory, where they take rich white women's lens and apply that to all of history. But what I'm saying is that the middle class, well, there was no middle class until the 50s, but the working class and below, whites, blacks, Asians, like working class whites, and then Asians, blacks, and Hispanics, men and women work together to survive. That's how it was. But somehow these women conned all women into thinking that somehow poor, black women in the South were being oppressed by black men. It's like, what? Or like, the Asians who built the railroad on the West Coast, somehow they were, the women were being oppressed. What are you talking about? That's not how it worked,
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I think that they get mad at how easily entertained men are. Like, I watched Hagler Hearns again. How many times have you watched Hagler Hearns? Like, I've watched that one round of boxing like 1,000 times. How many times have you guys had your friends, hey guys, let's watch your favorite Super Bowl or your favorite UFC card? You've seen the damn thing like 20 times, but you'll sit there with a beer and watch it, because that's how simple we are. If all three of us were to have 2 cases of beer and go to the lake and fish, how long could we go without saying a word to each other?
I mean, that's
hours.
Yeah, I mean, that's
hours.
But that's the difference. That's the difference, though, because it's like women. I think that's why they get frustrated with us, because they feel like they have to say something or they have to change something. Like, because they're just like, it can't be this simple. Like, I think even my wife sometimes, she'll see me, working on something or researching a topic, and I'll just be like, working on maybe a project and stuff in the room and everything, and I'll probably have my music going. And I'll just be, just in my little zone and stuff. But she, for some reason, she can't just sit and just like work on something. She has to like, I don't know, for some reason, she has this need to like clean and stuff. But I see that she'll come in the room sometimes and she'll like say, hey, do you mind if like I come in here and just start vacuuming and everything like that? And I'm like, you can if you want. I mean, it's no problem, It's like, I actually have my headset on, so I can't hear you anyway. And she'll be like, okay, well, I'll wait until you're done, and then I'll come in here and clean. I was like, no, that's fine. It's no big deal, But with her, it's like she wants to kind of like stop me from just like sitting down and working on something that I'm passionate about. Whether it's like a project or if I'm researching for a video or something like that, because this is like what I truly love doing, But I think it's just inherent in her to like want to put a stop to that, you know, and it's not even like something bad because I think she lets me do it anyway. So it's like there is that ultimate like, she's like, well, I know that this makes him happy, so I'm going to let him do it. But I know that in the beginning stages when I was doing this, she used to always interrupt it all the time, and she's like, she just didn't understand like how I was trying to pour, most of myself into this, and she was just like, she's like, I feel like you could be doing something else, And I was like, you know what? When you have free time and you're sitting on the couch, like watching everything on Netflix, because she told me this, she's like, I run out of stuff to watch on Netflix. I'm like, I wish I had that problem. I wish I had that problem. I can't. I'm like, that is what you call a first world problem that you were talking to me about.
Yeah.
Like, I've never had that issue. I couldn't tell you anything that's on Netflix right now,
Yeah.
But I just thought that's just kind of how we're different,
I don't think how people realize like the benefits of having a woman who's on your program, like how good that is. You know what I mean? So
No,
like
it's
my
great.
girl, my girl, I did all of my editing thumbnails for all of my channels myself, and I work full time. And then my girl started doing my editing and my thumbnails, and then like UFC is my main. So she watches all the UFC cards. She does my editing for my social media. So like we're in sync completely.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know how much easier life is when you're not having to constantly bicker and argue and have to sneak around or justify what you're doing? And this is what more men need to do: is say, look, this is what I'm about. You're either on this train or you're not. You know what I'm saying? Like, simple. Now, once again, there's no solutions, there's trade-offs, right? Now, there's a couple of things that she likes to do. So, for instance, fireworks. I hate fireworks. I hate them. I can't stand them. The 4th of July, we jumped in the car, we went to see some fireworks. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is, Yeah. But that's not anything too crazy. But so many times these guys get with these women where they're unhappy, they're miserable, and they don't know what they want to do. They just know that they don't want you to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So all of us here, all of us guys, we're on a track and we're running races against each other. And Camp's wife, my girl, they're helping us stretch and giving us water. And then there's that sad SOB out there whose girlfriend's cutting his hamstrings. He's never going to win. Never.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, it's like, it's like any successful relationship or marriage and whatever, there's compromises, and your compromise in that case was taking your girl to go see the fireworks and stuff. It's like sometimes you gotta take those, you gotta make those compromises. And, like I'm not that type of person where like if there is like housework to be done, like I'm relying on just my wife to take care of it all. It's like, no, I contribute as well because she works as well. So it's like that is, that is me helping her as well. So, it's like,
Here's the issue though. Here's the issue. And women do this, right? They have this narrative that men can't take care of themselves, weaponized incompetence and blah, blah, blah. So when a woman meets a man, he's usually living on his own. He's doing great by himself. But here's the thing: when you move in with them, well, first of all, they come to your house and say, "Why are your shoes in your house not organized the way I think is correct?" So there's their way, and then there's the wrong way. It's like, no, I have my way.
That's true.
When you do stuff around the house, it's like, I do things my way, she does things her way. But women think that the way that they do things is the default. So if they put the dishes in the dishwasher exactly this way, it's not wrong. They get all mad. Now, my girl doesn't do this. Your wife probably doesn't do this either. But think of this from the jump. You wouldn't go when your wife and you first met. You wouldn't go to her house and tell her how to organize her stuff in her house.
Absolutely not.
But women will go to a man's house and say, "Hey, look, your furniture doesn't match. Your shoes aren't organized." It's like this. Who are you? The hubris.
Yeah.
And what that does is that carries into the marriage when they're together. And all of a sudden, she's getting frustrated because you didn't put just the right amount of clothes in the washer. You didn't fold the socks. I was like, well, that's just the way you do things.
Right.
And women used to accept back in the day, you had, husband and wife who were, one was Jewish, one was Christian, one was conservative, one was liberal, right? They accepted their differences. The husband folded the socks the one way, commando role, because he was in the military, and the wife folded the socks the other way, and they were okay with that. But now in relationships, a lot of modern women assume that how they do things is the default, and anything incorrect, it's weaponized incompetence, and you don't know how to take care of yourself, and you're insert pejorative.
Typically we have to make the adjustment, and
my ex was the same way.
Now, you were military, my friend?
Because
name, the Ghost Rider guy?
Ghost. You can just call me
Ghost.
You
military?
Yes.
You're military? Okay. Have you experienced this where you're more clean and organized than the women you meet, and it pisses them off?
My ex never saw my barracks room, but I think she was genuinely shocked that I was actually more clean than she was.
I knew it. All the military guys I know, their wives get pissed off because they're so into cleanliness and organization. And they're like, they tell their wives or girlfriends, look, please, I need you to not leave this crooked. I need you to, or if I make the bed, it has to be straight. Can you not do this? And it's like, you would think that that's what a woman would kill for, right? To have a husband who like keeps everything clean and does the work around the house, but they don't even like that. They can't be happy with that. It's crazy.
It's funny you were talking about shoes being organized. We have a shoe organizer in our closet with labels of like where each shoe goes. Like, because I have my work shoes and I have like my house shoes and stuff, and then I have slippers and stuff. And of course, the kids have their own section as well. My wife is like hyper organized, so everything has a cubby, everything has a label. When she first got with me, she's like, how do you live here without anything on the walls? Your walls are all bare. You have nothing on the walls. Now in my house, I have pictures everywhere. I have mirrors. I have shelves. I have like storage on the walls now. It's like, if it was just me by myself, I wouldn't have anything on the walls, because I was never like that. But, I think that, my wife kind of came into this house and she made it a home. She made it hers, and I wouldn't say it's not an improvement. It's definitely an improvement, like my life being more organized because, she wants everything a specific type way. It works out, at least I know where everything is,
Yeah.
So, it works out, so,
I think modern women, though, it's just kind of close, and I'll jump off. Rachel Wilson, she really, really, really does a good job. Read her book, by the way. It's really, really, really good. And why a lot of women hate Rachel Wilson is because Rachel Wilson technically has it all. Think about it. She got married young. She had 5 kids. She raised them, and now she's a New York Times bestseller. Is a internet personality. So all these women who are boss babes and independent chicks, Rachel Wilson had the kids, and then she's still more successful than a lot of them are.
Yeah,
right.
That's what pisses them off. But she prioritized from a young age what she wanted to do. Women shouldn't have kids young, but they should have kids younger. Get married, have kids younger, because if that's ultimately what you want, right? Why don't you get that out of the way? And this is the thing about a lot of immigrants who come here, Asians, small hats. Going to college and getting married is not mutually exclusive. Building your career and getting married is not mutually exclusive. It's only like B-dubs and white chicks that are the ones out there that think that, oh, well, I have to focus on school or I have to focus on my job, but then don't notice that all their Asian, Middle Eastern, Indian, co-workers are all married and having kids.
Yeah.
So it's all about priorities. And here's the thing: do you know who Susan Venker is? Venker, Camp?
No, I do not.
The name sounds familiar. I've heard.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
I just can't remember.
So she went viral like right around 2020 during the cough because she was some like boss babe corporate chick until her late 20s or early 30s, and then she like basically met a guy, you got her head out of her butt and transitioned into being like a stay-at-home mom with like 3 kids and basically supporting her husband, right? And her whole podcast and everything is about coaching women on what their true purpose is and saying, look, you don't want to do this. And she's like, I've done that. I'm more accomplished than you broads could ever be, and it may be miserable. But she has a podcast and that she did, and it's like, there's nothing more sad than a woman who wanted to have kids who waited too long.
Yeah. Because honestly, man, it's really like doom. It's doom for a woman, like a man can pretty much have that, whenever he's ready, when he feels like he's accomplished enough that he can actually now, start looking for that. But I think for women, the window is a lot smaller. They have to prioritize, a relationship, have that family and stuff, and then take the time. Because if you do it the other way around, you're gonna basically paint yourself into this corner where you're going to be all alone. Yeah, you'll be all alone with your finances. I don't know if your money's going to keep you warm at night. But I mean, you're going to still feel empty. And I don't know. I think the whole loneliness epidemic that's going on, it's men and women.
But see, I don't believe that there is a male loneliness epidemic. So they only talk about that because women feel lonely and they project it on us men. Do you know how many men that I know who are in bad marriages that would kill to be part of a loneliness epidemic right now? Like, men have always been like homeless in the woods, hobos or whatever. I don't believe that there's a loneliness. I just think that anytime that there's this feminist tit for tat. So any critique of women, they go, well, the men do it too, or the men do blank, right? Like I haven't seen any data or anything to where that actually shows that men are any more miserable or any more prone to self-delete now because of being lonely than they were however many years ago. It just makes the women feel better about themselves.
To not be going to not be going through it on their own, like the men are dealing with it too. I mean, that could be true. Cause I mean, there, a lot of guys, that are single, they claim to be happier, cause it's like, they love being alone. They love having the freedom, to just do whatever they want and not have to answer to anybody,
I did my last video about that subject. And the thing that I actually found that was ironic was when I actually went through the data, it was that a lot of the ways that they do the metrics for that is, are you in a relationship? That was kind of the metric that they used for it. And when you actually went to things like TikTok and started comparing men's and women's experience, you get the party girls, woo, I'm so happy. Then right around when they hit like 35 or so, some of them do try to keep the party going, others don't. And then that's when they start feeling lonely and stuff. And then, most guys are just like, if it happens, it happens.
Right.
And then there's also the other guys who are just like, I don't really care anymore. That ship sailed.
Well, you can't really. Okay. So the field that I work in, part of where I work, there's a big, there's epidemiological surveys that happen. And one thing that they have been doing in academia and all this other stuff is surveying men and women the same. And you can't. Okay. There's different wording. You can only do that if you clearly explain what certain terms are. So a man might think of the word relationship differently than what a woman does. How many times have we said, if you tell a man what a family is, Camp, Ghost, and I would say a mom, a husband, wife, and kids. Women are more likely to say a single mom and kids. Okay?
No man in the picture.
Thank you very much. So that
but I probably also include grandparents.
No, What
yeah,
I'm saying
but
is that
in terms of immediate family, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So once again, what they've been doing, and the academia, especially soft sciences and social sciences, have been just completely dominated by feminism right now. So the default is this effeminate way to think, right? So whenever they get men's opinion, you have to look at the actual like what the study says, how the survey was conducted, and then if they've done this explanation of terms to where they can get the male perspective and the women's perspective. Oftentimes they don't, and it skews the data. So, like, what does lonely mean to a man versus lonely mean to a woman, right? Lonely to men can say, well, I just don't have any friends or whatever. Lonely to women say, well, I want a boyfriend or a husband, or I want children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, there's different things, and they don't factor that in. And just like I had told Camp earlier that have you heard though one point that these feminists try and make that husbands leave their wives, like they're 27 times more likely to leave their wives if they get sick? And I've heard that study.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I know it's crap.
Yeah, that study's been debunked, because what happened is that over the years when they were studying people, if you dropped out of the study, they considered you to be divorced. So if women oftentimes have PCOS or hysterectomies or these diseases, quote unquote, and then they drop out of the study, the woman's the one that's classified as having the disease, and then they're divorced. Therefore, that's going to show that it's more likely for a woman with a disease to be divorced. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when they actually factored it in, it shows that women are 7 times more likely to leave their husbands if he gets sick. But you got to actually dig into the study and show. That's like the one study that showed that if you take SA, right, and take the standard of unwanted touching and apply that to men get SA'd way more than women do. Way more. If you just
if you actually include what goes on in prisons too, the rate goes exponentially higher.
Don't use the R word, please. It's YouTube.
I didn't say that. I said if you include prisons, the rate goes exponentially higher.
Yeah. But like, I was on a panel and this guy's like, I don't think that's true. And I said, we've all been at parties or bars, and some chick just comes up to a guy and starts grinding on him or rubbing his. That's SA by the feminist standards. The guy doesn't know this chick. He doesn't want her touching him. You know what I'm saying? But we just, not us, but people just shrug it off.
Right. So it's not taken as seriously. You're right. Yeah.
There's new studies that actually show in DV and SA, women are the aggressor way more often than men. And once again, on the left, they don't go by facts, data, statistics, right? It's all feelings. You actually show them the data, and they I just can't believe this. No. I can't believe this. So, all right, guys.
Yeah. Hey,
appreciate you. Thanks, Camp.
I appreciate you coming to the stream, man. Thanks again. Appreciate it. Take care of yourself.
I see you, AJ.
Yeah, man. It's crazy. Like just because we were talking about when he first came in, female police officers, and I've seen it more that men don't really take female their authority serious when they see them on the street and stuff. They even try to hit on them and stuff, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just something that it's like they can't stop themselves from doing it, And
Camp, I've seen videos of guys who aren't fully mentally there walk up to female police officers and just disarm them. It's normal. And the worst case I ever saw on a video was the guy was later confirmed mentally ill, and he had actually escaped from a psych ward. and it was a really bad situation, but he escaped from a psych ward. He was also African American, but he escaped from a psych ward. He was wandering around a neighborhood and he was scaring all the local people. So they called the police. Female officer shows up. She has no backup. She walks up to the guy, starts talking to him. And, at first things are going okay. And then she starts trying, get his ID. Mind you, this guy has no ID on him because it's all at the facility.
Gotcha.
And she ends up getting he starts becoming non-compliant, non-cooperative. And she ends up drawing whatever she had on her. He ends up taking it away from her and just starts shooting it at her, for Pete's sake.
Did she get shot?
I don't remember clearly what happened.
Yeah.
All I remember was that the video eventually kind of goes off, where it gets pointed up somehow.
Yeah.
And you hear the shots going in the background, and eventually it cuts out. And then
this is her body cam footage, right?
Part of it was part of it was her body cam footage, and then I think it got censored out.
Okay.
And then then eventually backup arrives. They shoot it out with him. He ends up passing on.
Yeah.
And when they actually when they run his prints through their system, they realize that this guy was the mental hospital escapee that they had received reports about and everything.
I mean, what was she thinking, though, not calling for backup? It's like, you should always call for backup.
Well, he was acting strange, and technically speaking, acting strange isn't, considered dangerous on its own. It could be considered suspicious, but cops run into so many different situations.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would think it'd be better safe than sorry. I mean, cops all the time call for backup, even on a routine traffic stop, like I see it all the time. I've experienced it too,
And it also depends on where you are. Because if you're in a high crime neighborhood, before they even consider stepping out of the car, they're automatically calling for backup.
Right.
If you're in a low crime area or you're on a highway, are they calling for backup? Maybe.
Right.
It depends.
Yeah, that makes sense. That actually makes sense, now that I think about it. Because, I mean, Atlanta it can be a very high crime area, and it really doesn't matter if you're on the street downtown or if you're on the highway, both times I've been in both areas, and there's always been backup called, and even like a trainee vehicle coming where like a guy's just observing, they basically turn it into a whole training session. So, and it's just a, 15 miles over. That's all it is, So, wow. Yeah, it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
But
Camp, before you restart the video, there's actually something I do want to touch on here.
Sure. What you got?
She talked about how when she asked women, hey, here's an artificial womb, we can transfer your pregnancy out into this, and you're fine. The thing that I don't know if Rachel Wilson knows about this or not, the technology already exists right now for humans to transfer pregnancies from one woman to another. And I actually had to, and the thing was, I didn't believe this until I actually checked. Because my father told me a story of how they transported the embryo of a prized horse from the United States to England, and they sent it over there, and I was like, how? This technology doesn't exist. So I was going to my state university at the time, and I looked it up, and I found 3 different studies on this kind of practice for cows, pigs, sheep. The technology for transplanting pregnancies between different animals already exists. It just needs to go through human trials. So, imagine a woman with an unwanted pregnancy with a woman who can't conceive naturally, but her uterus is good.
Mm-hmm.
Why not just transfer the pregnancy?
No, I mean, I think women do seek out that option in terms of like a surrogate, because I think that's the term of it. It's called surrogate mother.
Well, no, surrogacy is where they take the eggs out of a woman who can't carry a baby to term, and they would implant it in another woman.
Right.
This is they take an embryo at the safest stage possible and implant it into another woman. The technology already exists,
right,
to do that.
Cabos, how you doing, sir? Welcome to the stream.
Hey, Cabos.
Hey, what's up? I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Pretty good, man.
I'm good.
Pretty good, dude. I just think that it just seems like a woman probably would opt for that, because they wouldn't want to, they wouldn't have to have that trauma that they ended a baby's life and stuff. I would think they would probably, jump for that. But then as far as Rachel Wilson coming across the women, like the majority of them saying, no, I kind of want to just have the choice, I want to have the choice to decide whether, the baby lives or dies and stuff. I just think that you would think, women wanting to preserve life and stuff, even if they can't take care of it, and they can release all of their parental responsibility, that they would opt for that. But it seems the opposite is true.
Yeah, it's terrible when you really think about that.
Yeah. But
are you guys against abortion?
Well, see, I said earlier, I said that I think in specific cases, I think it is, it's absolutely like understandable. Like if someone chooses to do it and stuff because like they were a victim of their circumstance and stuff like that, like I completely understand that, or maybe they're like 12 years old and they got pregnant, whatever, by some creepy guy, whatever. And it's just like, yeah, it was like, of course, but I think as far as a woman who is irresponsible, and she gets pregnant, I don't think that, I think that's completely different. I think that's kind of like, I think that's kind of a get out of jail free card a little bit. And I think women abuse that. And is it fair for a child to be born to a woman like that? No, because she's not going to be a good mom, because she already already has it on her mind and stuff. So unfortunately, man, like I ideally think that children should be born, but I do understand there are some gray areas that are kind of like, okay, I understand, where it is absolutely necessary. So that's where I can't be like 100% like, no, if you are R-worded and you get pregnant, you have to have that baby and stuff like that. Even if it's like by like your uncle or something, it's like, I completely, I disagree with that, and I don't know how much of a percentage of that is an actual case and stuff, but I just think that you have to look at it from an individual basis. And people that are just like, oh, I'm just not ready or whatever, or I want to, I want to have it all. I want to have my career and stuff like that, and I'm not ready to deal with the responsibility of, bringing it. I'm just like, oh, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but I still think that it should be available.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Just not abused. It should be available, but not abused. That's my stance on it. So
100%,
I'm in the same agreement here.
Yeah. I knew it took me a while to get to there, but that's pretty much, I had to kind of like explain it in my brain and then like, okay, how do I make that succinct? It should be available, but not abused. So there you go.
Yeah, that was a good explanation. I agree. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, it's not black and white, man. It's like it's just not black and white.
Yeah, because a lot of the cases you hear, it's, she went on a trip to Cabo San Lucas, or she went to Cancun or something, and she comes back and she just doesn't want to deal with it, or it's going to interfere with her lifestyle.
Yeah. Honestly, I think when men and women come together and they have a happy little accident, You know, it's like they had to make that choice right then and there. It's like, do we step up and, you know, take on this child and, you know, give the child a chance, you know, because, you know, we might have not planned for this, but, you know, now it's kind of on us to, you know, either work together or, you know, come to a compromise and, you know, an understanding that, you know, if we both are not ready for this, then we need to decide now and not wait, you know? Because I know there is people that talk about, you know, how long in terms of like the term should you be able to carry to until you decide that you don't want to have it. I definitely don't think you should go past a specific time. Like, it shouldn't be like months in, you know, it should definitely be like within the first couple of weeks, you know? So, because this whole like carrying a baby all the way to term and then deciding, that's cruel and unusual, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's people on TikTok that will have like super complex philosophical debates about it. You know what I mean? Like about whether it's morally right and stuff. And it's like, it's crazy, like the type of like, you know, conversations that they have. So,
but then you have the situation.
I was just curious about your.
I mean, you just made me think of another situation where, you know, the man, you know, wants to be in the relationship with the woman wants to be in the relationship with the man, but she's not ready to have a baby. She's not ready to sacrifice her body to have that baby. But the man, he's like, look, we're ready. Let's do this, whatever. But she's like, this is my body. This is my choice, you know? And then that puts a strain on the relationship. They end up breaking up and stuff. And yeah, it's just like, that's a tough situation, you know, because like the guy wanted to have the baby, but it's like ultimately, you know, the woman, she's like, it's my body, my choice, and I don't want to have this baby, you know?
Yeah.
So it sucks, man. And, you know, it's like, the way I think about it is that you got to take it on a case to case basis, because there's just so many different variables when it comes to relationships and, you know, where people are in their lives and stuff. It's like, once I found out that my wife was pregnant, yes, we were already married. Yes, we were, you know, we were trying for a baby, you know? And when it happened, sure, were we scared? But no, we were ready to take it on together, you know? And then my son, you know, we were actively trying after, like, my wife had her IUD taken out of her arm for like 3 straight years. And, you know, like, I was kind of getting a little scared because we were both 40 years old when we finally got my wife pregnant with my son and stuff. And I was actually scared. I was like, dude, I really hope that nothing bad happens to my wife when she gives birth, you know, because I just knew the risks, you know, of high risk pregnancy and stuff after 35, you know, and I was just so scared that, you know, I'm not gonna say the thought didn't enter my brain that she could have possibly died, you know, giving birth, because, you know, like she's not a 20-year-old at this point, you know, she was 40, you know, and, but I mean, thankfully, you know, everything went well and my son was, you know, nice and healthy and everything. And, everything turned out well. But I know there's some horror stories where, you know, the guy gets the woman pregnant and she dies, but they were able to save the baby. And it's just like, damn, dude, that's tough too, you know? So,
yeah.
But
yeah. Although it's funny that you bring that talking about the people on TikTok debating about it, because whenever somebody brings up if somebody offs a pregnant woman, you normally get charged with double homicide if she was far long enough.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
it's in about 38 states where whether it was accidental or not, if you accidentally do it, you know, they may it depends on the district attorney, they may give you some leniency, but if you intentionally do it, they'll charge you with double homicide.
I mean, does that just mean 2 life sentences pretty much? You know,
more or less.
Yeah,
but you know, there are critics of abortion and that say, well, if this is just a clump of cells, why is it in so many states and even in a couple other countries, why is it if you and this pregnant woman, you get charged not only with her death but the death of the unborn? and that really tends to mess with their arguments.
I can see that. Yeah, because there are some people that believe that a baby is a baby from the moment it's conceived, and then there's people that think that, you know, a baby is a baby once, you know, all of its organs are formed and all that other stuff, you know. So it's like it's kind of the court isn't, well, I guess what's the word? I guess the consensus isn't out, you know, like not everybody can agree on this in terms of, you know, when is a baby an actual person, you know.
Well, there are some studies that have shown that a baby is it's basically sorry, what did you say? That it's
that a baby
that
isn't
they're
like
saying
a
that
person, like you can't consider a fetus an actual like person until it's reached a certain stage, you know. But some people think
yeah.
that a baby is a baby as soon as it's conceived, you know, like even if it's like a couple clusters of cells and stuff, you know.
Okay.
So
Yeah, sorry, I kind of lost my point. I'm so sorry, bro.
no, it's just, I mean, that's what I was saying before, is that there isn't a consensus on this. You know, there's people
Yeah.
that think a certain way about this, and there's a whole other group of people that think that, yeah, it's like, you know, a baby is a baby the moment you conceive. So, but I don't know, man. Like when it comes to abortion, like at least in my case, it's not it wasn't an option, you know. Like thank God, you know, we had a healthy relationship and stuff, and you know, we were willing to work together, and yeah, I mean, it brought us closer and stuff, you know, because now it's like, dude, the kids that we have are our joy, man. It's like it's like, I don't know, man. I know my wife is very fulfilled in, you know, watching our kids grow, and you know, just our time that we get to share with them and stuff, and all the memories we did create and everything. It's just like, it's a beautiful thing, you know. And I know a lot of people kind of look at kids very differently. You know, they think that, you know, it's like, yeah, I don't want to have to deal with that. You know, I don't want kids. I don't want their added responsibility. I'm cool just fending for myself, you know. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you could consider that selfish or just, you know, just you just don't want to have that problem, I guess. I don't know. You know, I can't tell you what's right. I can only tell you what works for me. But what works for me doesn't probably work for other people, you know. To each their own. You know, I'm not here to tell people what's right. I'm just telling people, like, look, this is my opinion. And if you disagree, then, you know, I welcome the disagreement, you know. But I kind of wanted to see what this one was about, this video here about she was talking about feminists being drafted. I don't know if you guys were interested in this or not.
Let's
Yeah,
keep going.
I've seen her talk about it a lot. I agree with her.
I mean, I think it is kind of funny that if women would be drafted just as equally as men, whatever, to be on the front lines, I think they would try to find ways to get out of it. Absolutely. Because it's just like, women already aren't doing the hard jobs already. So it's like, why would they want to sacrifice themselves when they're like, no, like, that's not what I want, you know? So I just think,
Yeah.
I think
they would more than likely just get pregnant and to avoid being called up.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's see what else she has got to say here.
To have things like you had to do compulsory fire brigade service to vote. There used to be all these restrictions on voting, even for men, where if men weren't paying a poll tax, or if they couldn't pass a civics test or a religious test in some places, or if they weren't a certain age or didn't own property or didn't do some kind of civil service, they couldn't vote either. And I think it'd be good if we went back to something more merit-based rather than this idea that everyone deserves. You know, this word deserve drives me nuts. Everybody deserves just because they exist. And women deserve. And women will tell you all day. You ask a woman, what do you think women deserve? And they'll tell you, I think they deserve freedom and equality, and they should have this, and they should have that, and they should be able to do whatever they want. You say, okay, and I've asked this question, what duties do women have? And they go, what do you mean? They don't even know what they've never thought of that. They don't even understand the question, right? Does a woman have a duty to anyone or anything outside herself? And they'll just sit there and look at you gobsmacked like, well, I don't know. And I haven't gotten a good answer yet. So
it's kind of like when you ask a woman who wants a high value man, do you know what that high value man wants? And you get no answer whatsoever. They're just like, well, I never really gave it any thought. You know, it's like, I just know what I want. It's kind of like the same thing in terms of like duty in a relationship. You know, it's like, do you understand that if you're going to be in a marriage with a man who is in high demand, that you need to kind of cater to him and kind of be like an asset to him in his life, and not just be something that can be completely outsourced? Like, I think women, they care more about the lifestyle that a man can bring. And, you know, if they can get nice things and have a nice little flex on Instagram and stuff, but they're not thinking too deep about it in terms of like what they would do for that man or how to keep that man, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've watched a ton of women that will talk to like Kevin Samuels and stuff, and they'll be like, yeah, so I am a divorced mother of 3, and I would like to know, what do I need to do in order to, you know, get myself a high value man? You know, it's always the same story. And I was like, dude, it's like, you don't realize that a high value man does not want to have another man's children. It's like, you've already X'd yourself out, but it's just like, they don't want to hear that. You know, it's like, no, I still have a shot here, you know? And it's like, no, you don't. You know, it's sad. It's like, I think women just don't want to face that. It's like, you're cooked.
I mean, realistically, Camp, most women don't want to deal with, you know, anything that a guy would actually put the responsibility on them for, because it's just, I want the lifestyle. I don't want to have to put up with what your needs are and the any other thing that you may need me to do. It's, I want the good times and everything that comes with it, not what was I about to say? I just lost my train of thought. You know, she's not there for you.
Not
she's
for the responsibility.
For herself and what you can give her. And when you can't give her what she wants, you know, it's okay, I move on to the next guy.
Because her happiness is what is prioritized. You know? So
not realizing that happiness is nice to have, but it shouldn't be your priority.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you know, we said it earlier that, you know, men are willing to, you know, sacrifice for their families, for their wives and their children and stuff, and just work those long hours and break their backs, you know, and step in front of a bullet, you know, and all that stuff. But it's like, women, women aren't required from that, for men to do that. You know, we don't want them to do that. You know, we don't want them to have hard lives. We'd actually prefer women to have softer, easier lives, as long as they were there to kind of assist us, you know, and help us and stuff and be on our program, because it's easier when we work together than try to be in competition with one another.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, it's not even real competition. It's artificial competition when you really think about it.
Right. I guess it's kind of the illusion of like, you know, how much I'm worth to the other person, you know, and how much the woman thinks of her self-worth, and how, you know, sometimes that self-worth can be a little inflated. I mean, I don't know. I think some women, they do kind of overvalue themselves, especially after they've had kids and a few failed marriages and stuff. They still think that their value goes up the more experience they have and all this stuff. And it's like, you got to understand that the traits that you're saying that makes yourself valuable is kind of like a man. You know, you're like, well, I have my own business, you know, like I have a PhD, and like, we don't care about none of that. You know, it's like,
it's so backwards now.
It really is. It's like you were basically turned yourself into the men that you're looking for, you know, and men don't want to be with other men. Unfortunately, we don't want to be with masculine women either. So it's like, it's almost like the less experience you have, the less places you've been and stuff, you know, it's like, yeah, then we kind of have the opportunity to show you a little bit. But if you've seen everything, it's like, well, we got nothing more to do for you. You know, it's like, we'd rather have a woman who's like bright-eyed and just happy to see us than someone who's just like, yeah, I've done this before, I'm not excited about it. You know, it's just like, well, you know, it just seems like we're wasting time with that type of person,
Yeah.
you know? And I don't think women realize that. They don't realize that their humble brags about going, you know, all over the world and, you know, being on yachts and stuff. Like, that's not impressive to us. You know, it's like, that's the last thing we want to hear.
Yeah, and I think the worst part too is when you tell them when you tell them this, it's like they just can't fathom it. Like they can't believe it,
Yeah.
you know, or they can't accept that it's true. You know what I mean? Like they're basically in denial.
I mean, dude, think of all the girls on Instagram that have completely X'd themselves out, but they have no idea that they've done it. You know, by,
Yeah.
wearing underwear, lingerie, whatever. I mean, dude, even on Instagram, dude, you can show your body now. You can show like nudity now, and for some reason, they don't notice it. It's kind of weird, you know. And then as far as like being on yachts and traveling all these different places and stuff, it's like women don't realize that, you know, the more experience you have, it's like kind of like the less attractive you are, or less an option, I guess, something that we would be willing to consider, because they're just like, yeah, that's not something we want, you know. It's like we want someone who's like a little bit more reserved, and also, you know, like we can kind of respect. I don't think we can respect a woman who's kind of been showing her booty out to everybody, you know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, Cam, this is the difference between what men and women value. You know, most guys value women that present, or, well, that are going to give you what you want, as the best way to phrase this.
Mhm.
It is this. And, you know, each guy wants something different. But, you know, I've already said this in general. Most guys want a woman who's feminine, his preferred standard of attractiveness. And, you know, if you want, and, you know, and if he wants kids, you need to want to have kids. You know,
Mhm.
that's kind of the general three things
Mhm.
there that most guys want.
Yeah. I mean,
And you know, as for women, it's, you know, it's like, and I know I brought this up on the last live stream, but it's like the woman on Steve Harvey. She has the whole screen, the big screen, and then like the 3 extra panels of her lists of requirements.
Mhm.
And
Some of that stuff was contradictory. One point contradictory with another. I want somebody who's spontaneous but is also a planner. It's like, come on now.
Yeah.
You gotta have a swimmer's body, but you can't be stronger than me. It's like, come on now. It's like, what do you want protection? It's like, I don't get it. You can't be intimidated by me. You know, it's just, this is stuff off the top of my head. I'm just like, women don't have no idea what they want, bro. At least that woman didn't, you know? But
yeah. But, you know, the general thing is, you know, most women, you know, from everything that I've seen, my general list is you have to have the resources to take care of her, provide for her, you know, children, if that's what she's looking, if she wants that too, which some women do and do not want, depending upon the woman. And there was like one more thing that I came up with, but I'm forgetting right now. But, you know, that's kind of their general list.
Yeah.
And if you can't meet all of that, they just, you know, if you're good looking enough, you're a fun time. But are you something that she would stay with long term? No.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like some of these women, they're like, look, I'll give him one child, you know? And they're like, well, what man wants to have one child? You know, it's like, I mean, we've seen people that are only child, you know, that grow up and stuff like that. And yeah, it's like, it's a real like syndrome, you know. It's like, I think it's better when you have more than one, you know, sibling, or if you have you just another sibling rather than just yourself. But women giving, just like being able to, I don't even think they really want that. I think they just kind of say that as kind of like a compromise, you know, but they never actually, you know, do it. They just kind of say it because it's easier. They're just like, yeah, I'll give them one child. But it's like, sometimes these women are like past 35, you know, and they're probably sometimes creeping into their 40s. And I'm like, yeah, you can probably only give them one child, you know? So it's like,
That's crazy.
I don't know. It's kind of you're still, at kind of a disadvantage where you're gonna kind of not really be the best option, you know. And it's like women hate to hear this, that, you know, men go for women that are in their 20s because yeah, they have so much more time to bear children, you know. I mean, yes, they typically are, you know, more attractive, whereas women that are like in their, you know, 35 plus, you know, they are literally on their decline, you know. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's a sad truth. But I think there's some cognitive dissonance there that, you know, a woman can still make things happen after that, you know, after they reach that point, after the wall has been long hit. Like I think I mentioned about Amber Rose. You know, she's like she's like early 40s, and she is wanting to settle down now. She's ready to settle down and find a husband or whatever that's going to just be all about her and stuff. And I'm like, dude, look at this track record that you have, man. It's like you have this whole slut walk behind you. You've been passed around by all of the rappers in the industry and stuff like that. It's like, I think the last thing any man wants is another man's trash. Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of 20-year-olds that'll be like, I'll definitely hit Amber Rose or whatever up, but it's like not for a relationship. Come on now.
You're right.
Yeah, we're just trying to get a little milk. We're not trying to buy the whole cow. Come on now.
Yeah, the crazy thing is too is like a lot of women are just being told in their 20s, like, you know, just live your life. You don't have to settle down. And it
Yes.
just goes back to what you said.
Mhm.
Once they hit the wall, it's like now all of a sudden they feel like they're ready.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like musical chairs, man. The music has stopped, and now they need to find, you know, it's a scramble. You know? And you know, it's like it sucks because, you know, we have more time as men to get, you know, our life together and build up ourselves and stuff and make ourselves attractive, you know, and be kind of worthy of a relationship. Whereas, you know, women, they got to mature fast, and they have to choose wisely, you know. And if they give away their most coveted thing, which is their womb, if they give that away too early, it's like, you better be settled into whatever choice that you made. Because if you think you can step back out here with like 1 or 2 children in tow, oh, dude, you're operating at a complete disadvantage, you know? I mean, I'm not saying there aren't men that are willing to step in the stepdaddy position, but it's not the most attractive position. You know, you got to be a special type of person to want to take that on, you know? And
do you think those women are settling with those guys that they like end up with?
Yes,
absolutely. I mean, dude, your options are so limited, and like it's like rolling the dice, dude. It's like, yeah, if you hit 7 and you lock down a guy that has no children but is willing to, you know, care for your 2 children and stuff like that, you better hold on to him for dear life. You know, you better drain his balls and keep his belly full, man. It's like, no, it's like he really is. It's like, that's why I keep using that same term, the last train leaving, because there's only so many options that a woman have after she, you know, has a couple kids, man. You know, and it's a sad fact. But you know, this whole, like, I think other women gas other women up, man, and they're just like, oh no, you can still have it all. You know, you can still be out here, you know, dating like the whole Sex of the City and stuff like that. But it's like, you're gonna get that rude awakening, man. You're gonna see, like, when the phone stops ringing, you know, or the DMs aren't filling up anymore. You know? And
well, it's like you said, man. Other women just keep other women single.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, no, it's true. Because
the irony of Sex in the City is that it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, well, see, women are more prone to listen to other women. Something about like a man that, you know, has kind of like insight into like male and female dynamics, whatever, they're like less likely to listen to that man because they look at it more as a perspective than an actual like truism, you know? Like, I mean, of course, we are all speaking from our own experiences, but when it comes to like what men want, it's like almost women don't want to even listen to that. They're like, that doesn't matter what men want. I'm like, really? You would think you would want to research this and know exactly what men want, or at least the men that you want, what they want, and then you could at least kind of like mold yourself, or I don't know. I know this might be hard, but give the children to their father so you can actually start this relationship fresh with this new guy. I think women just don't want to do that either. Even though that would probably solve some of these single moms' problems or dilemma and stuff. It's like, yeah, they do not want to give up their children and give the children to their father. They would rather keep the children, keep the baby's father on child support for the 18 years, but then also still try to like live their life and date around and stuff like that. It's just like, look, you're not going to find anything solid. I'm sorry, but it's just or I think Kevin Samuel said this. He's like, you'll never do better than your baby's father. And it just seems to be like that's kind of like a fact. Women always try to aim higher, but it's like they never achieve what they want because unfortunately that baby father is still in the picture. And if it's multiple baby fathers, oh dude, the whole situation is cooked, dude. People are just gonna be hitting and quitting, and it's gonna be a revolving door.
And the guy my ex cheated on me for, every time I call, and I generally call about the kids, whether it's kids sick or we need to pay for this or something else is going on, or maybe it's just, hey, this is happening. What should we do about it? Because kids fight and it's a problem. Because even she has those problems. Like, what do you want to do about it? Every time I call, he's like, why is he call? My kids always tell me, why is he calling you? It's about the kids. And they always fight about it. It's a never ending cycle over there.
Well, here's the thing about being a stepdaddy that I guess most people don't think about. When you're the stepdaddy, which I don't advise for, but you have to kind of defer to the mom, the mother of the children in terms of like disciplining the child, unless you guys have like already had this conversation and she's like, I'm okay with you like disciplining my children and stuff. But most times the woman is going to be like, no, you don't put your hands on my child. You're not their father and all this other stuff. And it's like, you're in this weird position where like you have the position where you have to provide for them, but you have no authority.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say that.
So yeah, it's like that's why being a stepdaddy is like a shitty position. At least from my perspective on the outside looking in, I would never want that for myself or anybody that I know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, but even then, that's not even what I'm talking about. I mean, it's just me calling and he's having a hissy fit.
Well, I know that's not what you're talking about. I'm just telling you, like, that's kind of the shitty situation of the stepdaddy, is that you're never going to be the father. So you never actually have like the authority to actually, and it's not about hitting kids. Okay. I grew up getting like whoopings and stuff like that, but it's like, I can tell you that a stepdaddy does not have that authority. And it's just like, I don't know. It's like, why would you opt for that? Why would you want to step in a relationship like that? I don't know. Seems very messy and can be easily avoided, if you just swerve around those single moms. That's it.
I think in situations where maybe like the kids are grown already, like maybe that could work.
Yes. Yeah. Because then there's an understanding, like, look, I know I'm not your dad, and I know that you're an adult, you can take care of yourself and stuff, but just know, if you have any problems, whatever, you can come to me, whatever. You can have that type of conversation, and I think it'll be a little bit more mature,
Yeah.
Because you're not like imposing on them, like, hey, you got to call me dad now or whatever. It's like I understand that you're old enough, you have you remember your father. I'm not here to replace him. I'm just here to take care of your mother. Like I can see that whole conversation, how it going down and stuff. If the child's older, it can absolutely work, and maybe even be better than the actual father, depending on the circumstance. But I think when the child is younger, I think there's a lot more a lot more variables, a lot more tension that can happen, and just a lot more. It's a lot more messier, when the kids are still in that developing stage, and they always have that card to go to. They're like, you're not my dad. You can't tell me what to do. And it's just like, what can you fucking say to that? It's like, shit.
Yeah.
You gotta talk to mom, and you gotta be like, look, and it's like, that sucks. You can't be the man of the house. You gotta be like, well, they said this, it's like, we gotta talk to them. So I don't know. I don't know anybody who would willingly want to be put in that position, but I know there's guys out there that are willing to take whatever they can get, man. And they're willing to accept a shitty situation like that. So let's keep going.
I think that, sure, you have rights, but you have duties. And if you have rights with no duties, then that's just entitlement.
Rachel, your daughters are growing up in a world where the most popular career choices for young women are things like social media, OnlyFans creator, and teenage girls are being recruited into witchcraft on TikTok.
Yeah.
As a mother of 4 daughters, what is the hardest part of raising girls in 2026?
The internet. just keeping them off of it for as long as possible. And I think my husband has said this publicly too. When they were younger, we didn't know how bad it was because we are from a different generation. We didn't know some of the things that go on online and stuff like that. And if we had to go back and do it over, we would have kept them off of phones and social media even more than we did. We thought we were doing enough, but looking back, we would have cracked down on that even more. And my older daughters actually agree. My older ones will say, Mom, you cannot let the younger ones on this stuff. You got to take away all these things. Don't let them have this app. Don't let them have that app. And the older ones will even kind of help police the younger one because they're like, this is not good for you. You shouldn't be watching any of this. And you shouldn't be in Discord. Discord is crazy. Get off of Roblox. There's bad stuff in there. So I think the hardest part is the internet because in the Orthodox interpretation of Genesis is not that the tree of knowledge of good and evil was some kind of perverted test by God or some kind of trap that God laid, that as Adam and Eve grew spiritually and became more like God and learned and became wise, that they would be ready to eat from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, but that they did so at a time when they were not ready for it yet, and that's why it corrupted them. And it's kind of like that with kids. The internet can be good and it can be bad. And until you're old enough and you've got enough wisdom to discern those things, putting the whole world in a child's hand and expecting them to handle that is nuts.
I had a conversation with my wife about my daughter eventually having a phone for school. If there was an emergency and she needed to call my wife and stuff like that, I was like, I didn't have a phone until after I was graduated from high school. Why are we talking about her having a phone going into middle school? And she's like, well, if something happens, she can call us. I'm like, if something happens, the school can call you. What are you talking about? And she's like, no, I think it'd be better if she had the phone. I'm like, I don't think so. We're completely different about this. And I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, for me, it depends on how far away they are. I mean, my oldest, when he actually started walking to school and riding a bike to school, when he went to junior high, because the junior high was further away, that's when I was more interested in giving him a cell phone. I mean, as for my son with autism, he's been begging for a phone for years, and he's going to be taking a bus for the rest of his school days, so I'm not too concerned about getting him a phone. But as for my third son and my daughter, I mean, the school is close enough that I can literally throw on some clothes and be there in less than 5 minutes. So I'm not too concerned, but I do think about keeping an eye on it.
What do you think, Kavos?
I understand a little bit. What's crazy is that when I was in elementary school, there were already kids with with phones.
God,
It
that
was
blows my mind, dude. That
pretty
blows my
crazy.
mind to even
Yeah,
hear that. That's crazy.
yeah.
I mean, were your elementary school, were kids like getting distracted in class because they were playing on their phones and stuff?
Not actually, not really. Like there was one girl I remember specifically. She had a phone just to, get in contact with her parents. It was a
Okay,
flip
yeah.
phone. It
Okay,
was a
yeah, that
flip
makes
phone. It
sense.
wasn't like,
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't
Okay.
like the new age, like, the cell phones that we have now. But I
Yeah.
actually thought it was. At first I was like, "What the hell? Like, you have a phone? Like,
Hmm.
you know?" Uh, I guess I understand. I guess maybe where your wife is coming from,
Hmm.
and I understand where you're coming from in the sense that like I don't think kids that age should be having phones because dude, there's a bunch of like just bad stuff that they could be watching and
Yeah,
stuff,
this
and
is not going to be a
you know what
flip
I mean?
phone. This is going to be a smartphone device where she can watch YouTube, she can
Yeah,
she can
yeah,
access the internet at any point. I'm just like, I don't think so. I think that's not necessary. I think if anything, that's going to be a distraction. And if something happens at school, the school can call us, because the school has called us for whenever my daughter is like in the clinic or something, and she's like, running a fever or something like that. I got to come pick her up. It's like, why add another phone bill when it's unnecessary? you know I mean, are we trying to limit their
yeah,
screen time anyway? I mean, at least with my daughter, um I've noticed that her behavior in terms of like her attitude is better when you limit the screen time, uh versus when she's been on the tablet all Saturday afternoon while my wife is at work, and then she comes home, then I'm at work all night. And like, my wife is not keeping close tabs on her, and she's basically been on the tablet all Saturday. And she ends up, we have this thing in our house where she has a bad attitude or she talks back or something like that, then she gets a sad face, which this is not something I had when my childhood. Okay, she either gets a sad face or she gets a happy face. So if she gets happy faces all throughout the week, then she gets a reward, and whatever reward that is, it depends on whatever my daughter wants. If she wants to go to the park, if she wants to play like Minecraft or something like that, and whatever. But like, there's a reward system for that if she has, good attitude, doesn't talk back, and keeps her room clean, shit like that. And yeah, the last couple days, she's had fits where she is talking back, or she doesn't want to listen because she would rather be on her iPad. And I always tell my wife, I'm like, let's just kind of limit it to like just an hour a day. And if she wants to talk back, then just take it away for a week, you know? And we've done that. And I've seen my daughter like completely, like her attitude completely change for the better. So it's like, I think that's why I just try to like drive that point home. Like, we do not need to get a phone for her. Because I mean, she's just going to get distracted in school, and her attitude, it's like you're just kind of opening the door for her attitude to be like, maybe even translate to her talking back to the teacher. And the last thing I want is my kid, getting in, any type of suspension, whatever, because she couldn't get her attitude under control,
yeah. I actually heard this from Rachel Wilson. She said that there are kids age like 10, 11, or 12 even.
Mhm.
They're already like watching pornography.
I believe it.
You know what I mean?
No, I believe it.
And so that's like a huge, like, at least for me, if I ever had kids, that would be like my biggest like concern. You know what I mean?
I mean, you have parental controls that you can put on your phone, but that does not shield you from everything. Like, there are still ways around that. And if kids are savvy
Yeah.
enough, they know how to turn that off. So it's like, why
And they have
even
friends too.
Yeah, they have friends as well.
You know?
So it's like they're going to get exposed anyway. So that's why I'm just like, I don't know. When I was a kid, I was a kid. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have like, well, I mean, I didn't have a pager, didn't have any other stuff, whatever, because it was all a distraction, and it was a simpler time back then. But I think that her reasoning behind it was so that she can call us whenever there's an emergency and stuff. And I'm like, I just think that the school will do that, That's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's unnecessary. And I get it. My wife is just trying to, think about the safety and everything, but I just think it's unnecessary. I was just curious what you guys thought about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But that does blow my mind that you had elementary school kids with phones, man. That's, I mean, but the thing is, like, it makes sense that there are parents out there that want to give them just, you know, a direct line, you know, like a phone that basically only calls mom and only calls dad, you know, like I completely understand, you know, child phones like that. And, you know, just keeping it basic. I think I can understand, I can get on board with that, but that's not going to be the case for what my wife is arguing for. She wants to get her a smartphone. And I'm just like, no.
Get a flip phone.
I'm like, yeah. I was
Well, I
like,
mean, the problem is nowadays is a lot of carriers are phasing out flip phones.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Damn.
That's what I mean. I'm just like, I just would rather, because, you know, that's another thing too. Like, these kids are relying more on like ChatGPT to do their book reports now, you know, and if you give them that option, they're going to do it. They're going to use it.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
and it's going to carry all the way into high school and possibly college and stuff. And I don't know, man. I just think that what was it? Because I did see somewhere that kids nowadays, like getting them to read a book and, you know, write a book report about it and stuff like that, like that's not really happening nowadays. Like people, they can't write essays anymore because it's just like they don't have the concentration to do it because of the, you know, basically the screen time basically taking over their attention span and, you know, all of the scrolling and stuff that they do. They just don't have the attention to actually read a book, comprehend it, and then write an essay about it. They just can't do it. You know, like getting a paragraph is a chore for a lot of teachers. And I've seen teachers talk about this, and it's just like, it's because of, you know, these kids are on devices a lot earlier now. And it's robbing them of their creativity. And they're just these, they get bored. They get cripplingly bored, like cripply bored. I don't know if that's a real word. Cripply? What's the word? Like,
I understand what
you know what I'm trying to say. Like it's
Yeah.
like boredom.
Yeah.
It's like death by boredom, you know? And I hear it from my daughter all the time. She's like, I tell her, you can't bring your tablet in the car because we're just going to go pick up mom and come right back here. She's like, I'm going to be bored though. I'm like, look out the fucking window. I don't say fucking, but I'm like, look out the fucking window. You know? It's like, that's what we did when we were kids, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. It's like looking out the window is not an
That's
option now,
crazy.
dude. No, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I shouldn't be having this discussion with my 8-year-old daughter about being, you know, I'm going to be so bored though. It's like, well, you know, how do you know, man? I don't know. You're not going to die from it. Don't worry.
It's crazy. And so I think, yeah, I would definitely put way more restrictions on that. I think that, like, if we could have as much blocking of children from internet websites as possible, like if we could make it 18 and up for so many things, I would be in favor of that. I just think you just can't throw that much at a child and their brain and their limited experience and expect things not to go horribly wrong.
You lost one of your children. What was his name?
Jeffrey. Mm-hmm.
He was 10.
Yeah.
There's a question I think only you can answer. What do you think God was trying to teach Mary when he took her son away?
Well, the Orthodox interpretation of why Christ died is a little bit different than like the Western conception. In Western thinking, they tend to believe in something called penal substitutionary atonement, this idea that Christ took on the sin of the world and died for our sins to pay a debt to God that we couldn't pay. Now, if you believe Christ was God, if you're a Trinitarian and you believe that Christ is the second person of the Godhead, this becomes a problem because either you're splitting the Trinity against itself, where one person of the Trinity has to, you know, appease the other, or you end up like in an Arian or an Nestorian position where Christ must have not been fully divine, or he must have just been human, or something like that. What the Orthodox believe is that Christ died to enter Hades, and this is something called the heroine of Hades. It's a doctrine that's kind of lost in the West. So after the crucifixion and Christ's death, he descended into Hades, and we kind of skip over that, right? I was raised Protestant. We kind of skipped over that. We just talk about the resurrection and the ascension. But when he went into Hades, he defeated the power of death and took the keys of hell back and actually resurrected the Old Testament patriarchs. And it says right in the New Testament that when Christ resurrected and people saw him walking around, they also saw the Old Testament patriarchs resurrected with him and walking around. And I was like, how did I, in all my 40 years as a Protestant, never notice that? Never heard a thing about it in church. So that's something that as Orthodox, we really focus on. And we have a whole like chant that we do every Easter. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life. And we say it over and over and over. We say it about 100 times by the time we're done with our Pascha service. And it's to really impress upon us the fact that we were rescued from death. Death has no power anymore over us. And I think
I'm going to stop this right here because it looks like we're kind of veering off from the original topic, which was feminists getting pregnant so they don't have to be drafted to the war. And we're starting to get more into like theology and stuff. So that typically, is something that I'm not really interested in. I kind of wanted to just kind of stick on this topic about, feminism and stuff about, if
I actually have to go, Cam.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We're actually at 3 hours already. So I do want to kind of, I do appreciate you guys for coming in. Also AJ as well for coming in earlier. Thank you. I'm going to probably end the stream now. So yeah, I can go ahead and take my wife to work and everything. But yeah, I appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you.
No problem, Cam.
Yeah, no problem.
And
Always.
we'll come back next Saturday. And I wanted to just, wrap this up because, last stream I had not Andrew, but Rachel Wilson in the thumbnail and I never delivered after 6 hours. And I was like, let's just, let's deliver on that for real this time. So that's what this one was about. But yeah, appreciate you guys. If you guys like this video, make sure you guys like the video on your way out. And also check out Tea and Toast with Ghosts channel. You're always streaming on Sunday. I'm pretty sure you got a video stream, right? Coming up on tomorrow?
Yes, I do. 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's it, guys. I appreciate you guys coming out, and I will see you guys on the next one. You guys take care.
You as well, Camp. Take care as well, Calvos.
Take care.
Peace.
Later, Ghost.
Have a good night.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So that is the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed that one, and I will see you guys on the next one. This is Camp Hustle 1. Out.
Hustlers unite every Saturday night. We shine bright, got the spotlight in sight. Live stream flames, haters take flight. Popping in with hang, keep the flying airtight.